This breath, she is too familiar with. Previously, on the top of Jinqiao building, what she felt was this air engine. However, at the moment, the air engine in the study is many times stronger than that on the top of Jinqiao building, but the route is unchanged. What is he? Li Keiming looks at Wang Miaomiao bewildered and doesn't understand what she means. Jinqiao Mansion, haunted. Wang Miaomiao stares at Li Changhe, every word. Jinqiao Mansion? Isn't that project stopped? What about being haunted? Li Keiming was stunned. Then he looked at Li Changhe and said, "Dad, is what Miaomiao said true? What have you done?" "What did I do?" "No matter what I do, it's not for you, for this family." Seeing that the matter had been revealed, Li Changhe said with a sneer, "The greedy things of Jinqiao Mansion, we Changhe Group want to buy their house, that's their honor, but they dare to bargain with me, and say that they can demolish, but they have to have their own way to build in situ. Why don't they pee and look in the mirror to see if they deserve it?" At this moment, Li Changhe's words are very vulgar. If he is seen by outsiders, he can't believe it. This is the famous tycoon. Don't they want to bargain with me? Don't they want to move? Then I'll find a way to let them go. They are not afraid of Changhe Group and Li Changhe, but are they not afraid of ghosts? When their home becomes a haunted house, I can buy it at a low price. If I take it down and build it again, that's 10 times and 20 times the profit. Li Changhe sneer, with the cold air in the study, people feel that he is a terrible ghost. "Dad, you are crazy." Li Keiming looked at Li Changhe in amazement. He couldn't believe his ears. He thought that Li Changhe was just using the name of charity to select those children with special physique from the welfare home, raise them, and then give them to the power behind the Li family in the name of repaying their kindness. But now, he found out that the terrible things Li Changhe had done were more than he had imagined. Jinqiao Mansion, which he had been to, was also proposed by him to redevelop. As far as he can see, most of the people living in Jinqiao Mansion are kind-hearted old people. These people do not want to leave their old houses, resulting in the demolition cannot be carried out, although let him feel sorry, but it is just that. But he didn't expect that in order to force these people to go out, Li Changhe used this despicable means of being haunted and frightening. He also planned to take advantage of this opportunity to not only drive people away, but also greatly reduce the price of land and make a lot of money. Li Changhe was so strange to him that he seemed to know him for the first time. "Why are you looking at me like this? I do all this for you. Even if I am heaven level now, I will die sooner or later. After I die, everything I have is yours. I want to make you stronger. I want my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, to be masters and grow up without any threat, so that they won't follow your elder brother's footsteps in those years." Li Changhe saw Li Keiming's eyes, his face immediately showed a touch of anger, and he yelled in a cold voice. Li Keiming's lips moved back and forth, but he could not say a word. Looking at Li Changhe, his eyes were strange, afraid, and sad. "They don't deserve it? Do you deserve it?" Tian gently shakes his head and looks at Li Changhe with anger and compassion in his eyes. He can see clearly now. I'm afraid that when his eldest son died, Li Changhe was already crazy. Under his gentle appearance, what he concealed was actually a crazy heart. In order to prevent the tragedy from happening again, he chose to cling to the sect on the mountain and do despicable things in the name of charity. Similarly, for the sake of his family, he chose to use ghost tricks to entrap Uncle Li and Aunt Wang and their innocent people. Moreover, Tian believes that such a thing is absolutely not an exception. After all, doing bad things is addictive. The first time, there is a second time. Li Changhe's skillful means that it is definitely not the first time he has done such a thing. I don't know how many families have changed their fate because of his tricks. They have not only lost their living place, but also received very little feedback. Li Changhe's experience is indeed worthy of sympathy, but he has transferred his way to change the pain to those innocent people, which is hateful and unforgivable. What right are you to tell me? Go to hell. When Li Changhe hears Tian's words, his angry face immediately becomes more intense. With a sharp drink, the evil breath of the whole study suddenly converges. With a terrible cry, he attacks Tian's head like a drill. The cold air and terrible voice made Wang Miaomiao hold his head tightly. His body fell to the ground and rolled in pain on the ground. He felt that his brain was about to split. Even Li Kaming, who is a prefectural leader, can't help blocking his ears with his hands. He shudders and seems to fall down at any time. Don't show off these boring methods of dishigate in front of me. I killed your little master. But even so, Yi Tian's face was calm and indifferent. After he looked at Li Changhe lightly, his mana surged, his hand gently pinched, and he said faintly, 5 Thunder Dharma, thunder, swing. Boom! Yi Tian seems to have golden words. At the beginning of his words follow suit. A bright thunderbolt suddenly appears and explodes in his study. With the sound of the thunderbolt, the original strong and incomparable Yin Sha breath in the study, just as the winter snow meets the hot sun, suddenly dissipates, and the gloomy cold feeling disappears. Poof! Finally, Li Changhe's body suddenly falters, spits out a mouthful of blood, and his eyes lose their looks. He looks as if he is several decades old. You are Yi Tian, you really are him. And when this scene appears, Li Changhe's more creepy voice completely confirmed the identity of Yi Tian. In addition to the Yi Tian who can destroy Taemin with his own strength, he really can't think of anyone who can kill this kind of offensive so easily. After he broke through the sky level, he thought he had become extremely powerful, but unexpectedly, in front of Yi Tian, he was no different from those who were regarded as mole ants in Jinsha Mansion. Life, death, and plunder are in the hands of others, not even qualified to fight. He is so powerful. Li Changhe is not the only one. Li Kaming also looks at Yi Tian in horror. Although Yi Tian has already said who he is and can destroy the whole Taemin by himself, this kind of thing is just a legend. If he has not seen it with his own eyes, he will never know the horror. In the past, Li Kaming's father, who broke through the heaven level, was no different from the gods. He was powerful and terrible. But now, in front of Yi Tian, he was not even the enemy of Iha. The disparity of strength can be seen. I've already said that, but you don't want to believe it. Yi Tian hears Li Changhe's words, pick eyebrow a smile, light way. It's you. Li Changhe's lips are moving, and he stares at Yi Tian tightly. A moment later, he suddenly makes a decision, struggles to get up from the ground, hands clasping, respectfully says to Yi Tian, Elder Yi, I have eyes and don't know Taishan. Today's event, please hold high your hand, just as if you didn't see it, just as if it didn't happen. I'd like to dedicate Miao Miao to you. When Wang Miao Miao listened to these words, the disappointment in his eyes was so strong that it could not be further enhanced. She had always thought that Li Changhe, who had been adopted from the welfare home, was the biggest good man in the world, but it was only at this moment that she realized that this good man was just a villain in the skin of a good man. Give me Miao Miao? Yi Tian hears these words, face Li Changhe to pick eyebrow to smile, light way. Yes, I can dedicate Miao Miao to you, and I can give you all the income of Jinsha Mansion. According to my previous operation, the profit is about 10 billion. Li Changhe nodded in a hurry and said solemnly. It turns out that in his eyes, I'm just his dog and kitten. No, I'm not even as good as dog and kitten. I'm just his potted flower. I'll give it to whoever I want. Wang Miao Miao looks at Li Changhe painfully, tears have blurred his eyes. She has always been very grateful to Li Changhe for bringing herself out of the welfare home, providing for her study and finding someone to teach her how to cultivate. She has always regarded Li Changhe as her most respected grandfather. She also thinks that maybe there is no blood relationship between them, but Li Changhe regards himself as his granddaughter. But now, she can really see the truth, understand everything in the past, but it is her wishful thinking fantasy. She did regard Li Changhe as her grandfather, but Li Changhe regarded her as a tool to be used casually. Beauty and money. Yi Tian looked at Li Changhe mockingly and said faintly, you may be disappointed, beauty. I like it, but the person I like is not Miao Miao. As for money, 10 billion is really a lot, but it's not rare for me. Not to mention the money he got for treating Jaimo's illness, the income brought by Shueji ointment alone is immeasurable, 10 billion, which is indeed an astronomical figure, but unfortunately, for him, it's really not the amount that can shake his mind. Not to mention, although he has no aversion to money, he still cares whether the money is clean. If he really took the tens of billions that Li Changhe got for murdering those people in Jinsha Mansion, then he would never forgive himself in his life. He would feel that his hands were covered with waving, even if he washed them with the clearest waves of heaven and earth. I don't like it. Not rare. Yi Tianyan's simple and comprehensive words made Li Changhe's head buzzing. He attached himself to the gate and met many mountain people, including some famous experts. But in his opinion, although they are very powerful, they are actually no different from ordinary people. They never dislike their money and hide their greed. What's more, these people don't care about where the money comes from, and whether the beauty is really willing. But Yi Tian is obviously one of them. No money, no beauty. What do you want? A panacea? Refining material? Just say it, and I'll do my best to help you find it. Li Changhe stares at Yi Tian. After a long time, he is at a loss. These are not what I want. Yi Tian smiles, calmly looking at Li Changhe's eyes, and says, what I want is justice. Fair. When Li Changhe heard Yi Tian's words, he couldn't help being stunned. He immediately raised his head and laughed wildly. Looking at Yi Tian, he said, when has there been real justice in this world? Not in the past, but if I see it, I will. Yi Tian calms down. He knew that what Li Changhe said was a fact. In this world, the law of the jungle, repairing bridges and roads without bones, killing people and setting fire to gold belts happen from time to time. Justice is just like a joke. But he didn't see it. Since he saw it, he must seek justice for those innocent people. Li Changhe is extremely hypocritical. I don't know how many people's blood, tears and bones he used to build up his reputation as a rich man and philanthropist. If such a person is not severely punished, the world is really boring. You can't kill me. I'm a member of Disha sect, and I'm the elder of Disha sect. You killed me. Li Changhe listens to Yi Tian's words and shakes. Without any hesitation, he will threaten Yi Tian. But in the middle of what he said, his expression suddenly became dull, and he couldn't say a word more. Because he suddenly thought that Tai Gate, whose strength is not under Disha Gate, has been destroyed by Yi Tian alone. He took Disha Gate to coerce Yi Tian, a strong man who can destroy a clan by his own power. He really threatened the wrong person. Moreover, it's too late for Dishaman to avoid Yi Tian, even if he is an elder who has made a lot of contributions to Dishaman, but how can Dishaman provoke Yi Tian and the clan to kill him for protecting him? Meow meow, you were brought up by your grandfather. Have you forgotten? When you were a child, your favorite thing to do was to pester your grandfather in the study. Do you want to watch Yi Tian kill him? Thinking about this, Li Changhe knelt down on the ground with a cry on his face. He knelt down and walked to Wang Miaomio. He kept kowtowing to Wang Miaomio and talked about the past. He hoped that Wang Miaomio would remember his old love and ask Yi Tian to spare his life. Wang Miaomio looks at Li Changhe and listens to what he says. He can't help but burst into tears. Things happened when he was a child emerge one after another. Although Li Changhe is taking advantage of her, she can't deny that she would not have been her in recent years if it wasn't for Li Changhe's adoption. And she remembers that when she was very young, her favorite thing to do was to run around in the Western-style building, and then rush into the study. Although Li Changhe would laugh and scold her a lot of times, sometimes Li Changhe would hold her up and teach her how to read. At that time, she felt that she was the happiest child in the world, and she really took this Western-style building, Li Changhe and Li Kaming as her relatives. Li Changhe can be merciless to her, but she can't be unjust to Li Changhe. Mr. Yi, grandfather, he has indeed done too many things wrong, but no matter how you plan to punish him, please, save his life. After a long time, Wang Miaomio looks at Yi Tian and murmurs. Mr. Yi, I know that Dad has many mistakes. Please look at Miaomio's face, and then look at the reason why he became what he is today, because his elder brother was injured. Please spare his life. It is not only Wang Miaomio, but also Li Kaming's constant cry to Yi Tian. Abandon your own cultivation, apologize to all the victims in the past, and offer corresponding compensation. I can consider sparing your life. Yi Tian listens to the two people's plea. After a long silence, he looks at Li Changhe and says faintly. Although he wanted to kill Li Changhe, a man of human face and beast heart, he only had Li Changhe, a hateful man, who really had some pities.
Moreover, at Li Changhe's age, after he abandoned his cultivation, he would be an old man in his twilight years. Moreover, because he practiced Yin Sha, his physique would be worse than that of the old people of the same age. It is estimated that he would not live for many years. Therefore, it is worthy of Wang Miaomiao's plea to let him abandon his cultivation and leave a decent way to die.
Let me discard my accomplishments, you dream. But almost at the moment when Yi Tian's words fall, Li Changhe's eyes suddenly show a fierce light.
Originally kneeling on the ground, he suddenly shoots up and grabs Wang Miaomiao's neck. It's obvious that he intends to take Wang Miaomiao to coerce Yi Tian.
It's no pity to die if you don't understand. When Yi Tian saw Li Changhe's action, his eyes suddenly cooled, his magic power surged, his hand gently waved, and a wind blade suddenly flew out, flying to Li Changhe with lightning speed. At this moment, he thought clearly that there was no need to be lenient when he met such a crazy person in the future. Because this kind of guy who only has his own heart will not repent at all. Whoa! With a crisp sound, Li Changhe's neck suddenly showed a red line, people fell to the ground, immediately blood like a spring, in an instant, it will study the ground, died a pool of blood. A generation of rich people, just like this, their souls are gone dead. Li Kaming cried bitterly. He rushed to Li Changhe's body and cried.
Grandfather!
Wang Miaomiao looks at Li Changhe's corpse, which is stiff in a pool of blood. His lips move and his eyes look extremely complicated. She can't understand why so many people in this world have to pass the pain on to others if they don't live well. I gave him a chance, but unfortunately, he didn't cherish it.
Yi Tian looks at Li Changhe's corpse indifferently, light way.
Although Li Kaming's shrill howl and Wang Miaomiao's complex murmur are moving, Yi Tian still doesn't regret what he just did. He had just planned to abolish Li Changhe's cultivation and give him a chance to live to get a good death.
For Yi Tian, this has been regarded as a special kindness to Li Changhe. But unfortunately, Li Changhe didn't treasure himself, and he even planned to take Wang Miaomiao's life to coerce him.
Such a move shows that Li Changhe has no heart of repentance at all.
Even if he abandons his cultivation, he will not change anything and will continue his previous despicable acts.
It's a disaster for such a person to stay in the world. It's cheap to give him such a good time. I don't mind if you want to avenge me, but I hope you don't repeat his mistakes. Closely following, Yi Tian turns to look at Li Kaming, light way. If Li Kaming wants to take revenge on himself, Yi Tian can understand. But similarly, if Li Kaming promotes his cultivation in a normal way, Yi Tian will have nothing to say even if one day he is stronger than his cultivation and kills him. Of course, the probability of this kind of situation is very small, which is more difficult than going to heaven.
However, if Li Kaming repeats Li Changhe's mistakes and chooses to improve his accomplishments by adopting a different method, then don't blame him for his impoliteness.
No matter how hard he tries, he will also take Li Kaming's life.
Revenge?
Li Kaming held Li Changhe's corpse in his arms and wept bitterly. Immediately, he shook his head slightly. He hated Yi Tian, but he also understood that the things that Li Changhe had done were worthy of death 100 times. Under such circumstances, he hates Yi Tian, but he has no intention of seeking revenge from Yi Tian.
Revenge will only cause more innocent people to suffer.
Draw a full stop here, is already a perfect ending.
Very good.
I'll leave the business here to you. I'll go first. Yi Tian nodded slightly, and looked at Li Kaming and Wang Miaomiao calmly, even if he wanted to leave. Li Changhe is dead, and the culprit is Fufa. It is meaningless for him to stay here.
Moreover, if he continues to stay, it will only make Li Kaming feel painful. Li Changhe should die, but Li Kaming is obviously innocent.
There is no need to let the innocent bear too much pain.
Master Yi, what should I do at Disha Gate? Hearing this, Wang Miaomiao looks at Yi Tianxuan and asks. What Li Changhe does is closely related to Disha Gate.
Although Li Changhe is dead, Disha Gate is still there.
Without Li Changhe, it's hard to guarantee that Disha Gate people won't let Li Kaming continue to do what Li Changhe did before. Li Kaming is just a prefecture-level cultivation. If the Disha sect wants to force him to do something, he has no bargaining room at all, unless he dies. If someone from Disha family comes to Li's house to do something for you, you can tell them that Yi Tian doesn't allow you to do these things. If they don't agree, they can come to me. Of course, there's another thing that you also told them. I'll go to Disha Gate sometime. The Leaf Day hears speech, indifferent smile, calm way. He has seen Disha's bad deeds many times. Far away, there is Qin Fang Yuan's scum who planted the seeds of Disha in children's bodies. Closer, there is Disha's unreasonable and domineering young master. Now, with the help of Li Changhe's hand and in the name of charity, he has collected the body of Cauldron and other young girls with special physique from the welfare home. Such a clan should have been punished by everyone for a long time. In the past, he did not know how to kill the clan, and his strength was not strong enough. But now, his strength is strong enough. Naturally, he can't tolerate this kind of sect which is harmful to the world and continues to exist in the world. Disha Gate, where is it? Next, Yi Tian looks at Li Kaming and asks. Disha Gate is in Guiwang Mountain, Fengdu of Bashu. Li Kaming lowered his head, trying not to let himself and Yi Tian have eye contact, and then slowly said a place name. Fengdu Guiwang Mountain. This is in line with Disha Men's spirit cultivation method. Yi Tian nodded slightly, remembered the name, and strode toward the door of the study. Zhai Mo is almost awake now, and the people of Zhai family have almost recovered from the pain. He is going to the hospital to talk about cooperation with Zhai Mo and ask Zhai Mo to help push Shueji Cream to a broader stage. Uncle Li, people can't come back to life after death, you have to mourn next, what shall we do? At this time, after seeing Yi Tian off, Wang Miaomia turns to look at Li Kaming and says slowly. What to do? When Li Kaming heard Wang Miaomiao's words, his eyes showed confusion. In the past, he had never considered this issue, but now, Li Kaming is no longer there, and the power of the Li family has fallen into his hands. Carefully investigate all the real estate projects and other businesses that the Li family has handled over the years to see how many of them are like Jinshao Mansion, and then make compensation to those who have been hurt, and atone for what they have done for their father. After a long silence, Li Kaming slowly made a decision. Li Changhe died, but it doesn't mean that the damage caused by the Li family to the innocent people is no longer there. In the past, he can't change all this, but now, he is in charge of the Li family, so that the innocent people will get their due compensation. Also, I want to set up a fund to do real charity, to really help those innocent children. Then Li Kaming spoke again. Those who suffer from the loss of interests due to real estate and commercial projects are well compensated, but the children with special physique who Li Changhe adopted from the welfare home cannot be compensated. The only thing he can do is to really help those innocent children and let them get real help, rather than Li Changhe's so-called help, which is just a pretext of hypocrisy. Wang Miaomio nodded solemnly and looked at Li Kaming with gratification and expectation. She knew that this time, there would be a real sense of Li Shanrun in the Li family, not a wolf dressed in benevolence and righteousness as before. At the same time, after Yi Tian left Li's home, he took a taxi and turned back to the hospital. As he expected, when he returned to the hospital, Zhai Xian was no longer in the hospital, and Zhai Mo was awake. Zhai Laozi, Shai Chen and Chen Ro were talking with her. Imoor, this is the powerful Mr. Yi I just told you. This time you can survive, thanks to Mr. Yi. As soon as he saw Yi Tian, Zhai immediately stood up and introduced himself to Zhai Mo. Thank you, Mr. Yi. Hearing this, Zhai Mo struggles to get up from the bed and thanks Yi Tianqing. You've just recovered from a serious illness. Don't move. Have a good rest. Seeing this, Yi Tian waved his hand with a smile, indicating that Zhai Mo was not so polite. When she lay down again, he said with a smile, in fact, I have a selfish intention to save Miss Zhai this time. Selfish? Hearing the news, Zhai Laozi and Zhai Chen couldn't help looking at Yi Tian in doubt. Yi Tian is very powerful. Even though the Zhai family is famous and influential, they still don't think there is anything wrong with Yi Tian and they need the help of the Zhai family. Mr. Yi, you can say that you have saved my life, as long as it is something that I, Zhai Mo, can do, and it is not a crime, a violation of the law, or a betrayal of the national righteousness, even if it is going through fire and water. Zhai Mo was a very grateful and cheerful person, and did not find Shai Chen strange. After hearing the speech, immediately looked at Yi Tian, sincere way. Mr. Yi, if you have anything to help, just say that my Zhai family will help you. Not only Zhai Mo, but also Zhai Laozi. The Zhai family has always paid attention to loyalty. They always repay each other with the help of water.
Yi Tian saved Xiaomo, such a great kindness, as long as Yi Tian to do things, not against the national righteousness, even if it is a slight brushball, he is willing to help.
My selfishness is very simple. I want to cooperate with you, Miss Xiaomo. Yi Tian smiles and looks into Xiaomo's eyes.
He says, I don't know if Miss Xiaomo is interested in helping me develop an overseas market for Shueji cream.
Snow cream? Hearing this, Xiaomo was stunned and looked at Yi Tian. Immortal, you don't know that Mr. Yi is the miracle doctor who developed Shueji ointment. How about it? I can't believe it.
Zhai Laozi had heard about it from He Lao Wang. Seeing Xiaomo's expression, he said with a smile.
Yes, I made Shueji cream. Yi Tian nodded with a smile.
God, Shueji cream was developed by you.
You are so young.
When Xiaomo sees this, he looks at Yi Tian in a dazed way and says in disbelief.
She is no stranger to Shueji ointment. To be exact, she is also a member who was shocked by its effect after using Shueji ointment.
When she was very young, because of her cheerful personality, like tomboys, she liked to run around and fight, so she bumped and left a lot of small scars. When she was a child, she thought these scars were nothing and didn't take them seriously. But when she grew up, those scars began to grow with the growth of her body. For a long time, she didn't even dare to wear a skirt. She was afraid that those ugly scars on her legs would be seen and laughed at by others. Although the Zhai family is extremely rich, she has gone to some hospitals to try to remove scars, but unfortunately, although she has tried such as laser scar removal, as well as some so-called scar removal specific drugs, they have gained little. Those ugly scars still grow on her body like roots, and never disappear.
Some time ago, a friend recommended Shueji ointment to her.
She took a try attitude and bought a few bottles.
Unexpectedly, the effect of Shueji ointment was unexpectedly good.
After a course of treatment, the scars that had plagued her for many years disappeared and her skin was as bright as jade. However, she always thought that the person who developed Shueji cream should be an old man with white beard and excellent medical skills, but she never thought that the developer of Shueji cream would be so young and look like a college student.
I'm sorry, Mr. Yi.
I didn't mean that, but I didn't expect that the developer of the ointment with such good effect would be so young. After the shock, Xiaomo immediately felt that he had made a slip of the tongue. He seemed to doubt Yi Tian's meaning and explained quickly. Miss Xi, don't be so nervous. Besides, you are shocked because I am young, which is actually a compliment to me.
Yi Tian waved his hand with a smile and joked.
When Xiaomo heard this, he immediately began to laugh, and his manner became relaxed, but the shock in his eyes remained the same. Listen to what you just said, Miss Xi, you seem to have used Shueji ointment. You know very well how it works. Seeing this, Yi Tian laughed, and then said, well, I don't know if Miss Xi is interested in helping us promote this product overseas.
I will.
Xiaomo smelled speech, without any hesitation, immediately forced nod, without thinking of the answer.
She was deeply impressed by the amazing efficacy of Shueji cream.
Moreover, out of her keen commercial sense, she also learned some information about Shueji cream. She found that Shueji cream had not developed overseas market, so she wanted to find opportunities to contact with each other. She has a premonition that no matter where she gets the ointment, it can definitely find a huge market and make a lot of money. After all, in this world, three-legged toads can still be found, but people without scars are too difficult to find.
Yi Tian can't help but feel a little stunned. He didn't expect that what Xiaomo promised would be so simple. Mr. Yi, if you don't come to me, I will come to you in the end.
Seeing this, Xiaomo smiles and tells the story. So, it's really predestined relationship.
Mr. Yi really found the right person.
When Zhai heard this, he immediately laughed.
Yi Tian also nodded slightly, smiling.
Xiaomo agreed so simply, which made him feel much easier.
Since Miss Xi is willing, that's great. This is Miss Ning Shui, who is now in charge of the domestic production line of Shueji cream for me.
You two will come to contact me about the follow-up matters.
I believe in your professionalism.
Immediately after that, he gives the number of Ning Shui to Xiaomo and asks them to contact the next thing.
Well, I won't let you down, Mr. Yi. Xiaomo doesn't shirk anything.
After saving Ning Shui's number, he looks at Yi Tian and makes a solemn promise. Well, Miss Shai, take good care of your illness.
When you recover, we'll talk about the next cooperation. Yi Tian smiles and nods slightly.
After a few words with Zhai, he leaves. This Mr. Yi is really a strange man.
When Yi Tian left, Zhai Mo was still shocked and filled with emotion.
If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes today, she couldn't believe that the developer of Shueji Cream was so young.
Yes, Mr. Yi is really a strange man. It's not only Zhai Mo, but also Zhai Laozi.
If it wasn't for Yi Tian, Zhai Mo would not have woken up, and he would never have thought that Zhai Xan would be the culprit who made Zhai Mo a vegetable at this time. Yi Tian has already walked out of the hospital.
Just as he was about to reach for a taxi, a young man ran over and ran into Yi Tian. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
The young man was wearing a blue jeans and a white t-shirt. He looked like a college student. Although Yi Tian was a bit depressed by the collision, he didn't care about the other side's attitude. He waved his hand at will and said, I'm sorry. The young man apologized repeatedly, then bowed his head and ran forward in a hurry.
No.
But almost at the moment when the young man turned the corner, Yi Tian suddenly had a bad feeling. He reached for his pocket and touched it. His brow immediately wrinkled. A playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth and murmured, Good means, it's stolen from me. His wallet, which he had stuffed in his pocket, had disappeared. Who is Yi Tian, not to mention the cultivation of the last life, is just like this. He is also a monk on the 6th floor of the cave, and an invincible hand among the mountain people.
Now, this young man dressed as a student has stolen his wallet, and he hasn't noticed it yet.
This only shows that there must be something strange about the thief. I'll see what's weird about you. Yi Tian's eyes changed slightly. Without any hesitation, he strode after him to see how the young man took his wallet from the monk on the 6th floor of his cave.
Wokuo, how can I have so little money?
You can come out of a private hospital and have money and clothes.
How can you be a poor man?
In a short time, not far from the corner of the park lake, the young man dressed as a student took Yi Tian's wallet out of his pocket.
When he opened it, he couldn't help looking silly.
I saw that Yi Tian's wallet, in addition to a group photo and several bank cards, had only tens of yuan of change.
Damn, I'm so poor. I didn't do it when I knew it. It's a waste of my time today.
With a curse, the young man threw his wallet aside, reached out and took out a pile of money from another pocket. After counting it one by one, he put the money on the grass and murmured, It's only 6,000.
It's still 1,000 short. What can I do? Shwa!
But just then, a scene that made young people feel incredible appeared. It was clear that there was no wind in the air, but the money he put on the grass suddenly flew from the ground like a strong wind, and then flew behind him. What's more strange is that the money doesn't fly one by one, but flies back like an invisible hand.
Are you a human or a ghost?
Seeing this, the young man turned his head in fear. When he saw that Yi Tian didn't know when he appeared not far behind him, and the money also fell in his palm, he was shocked.
Didn't you just say that I was a poor man?
Yi Tian picks eyebrow to smile, hand gently a probe, again sure cloud hand, was thrown aside by the young man's wallet, also flying in the air, fell back to his palm. There is not much money in this wallet, but it is the most precious thing on Yi Tian, even more than the storage ring. Because, this wallet is his mother gave him the last birthday gift, and the wallet, also put a picture of him and his parents. After the death of their parents, the house was sealed up, the things left by their parents, the auctions at auction, the things lost by others, the only things left were these two items. The storage ring is gone.
As long as you have the right material, you can make another one.
If you lose the things in it, you need to look carefully.
Even if it's the most precious medicine, you can find it again.
But the wallet is lost, and the photos inside are gone. Unless he can look back, he will never see his parents' faces again. Why are you not afraid of the sun? Are you a monster? The young man was completely surprised by Yi Tian's miraculous hand. He looked at him in a daze, and his mouth moved for a while before he could hold a word.
If I'm poor, you're a real fool.
Yi Tiandu was amused by the young man's words. Looking at him, after shaking his head playfully, he mocked, "Now there are several people who will carry a large amount of cash on their bodies. What's wrong with you to steal, but steal your wallet? What's more, it seems that the way you steal things is not what you can have, and you don't suspect that you are a monster, do you?" Before he was hit by a young man, he felt that he was just an ordinary man without the chi of a cultivator. But at that time, he still had some doubts. After all, if a young man could steal his wallet from him without knowing it, he would not be a strong man who could hide his breath. Of course, the probability was very low now. Seeing the young man again, Tian has completely confirmed his previous conjecture. Although this guy has the strange ability to steal his wallet from his monk on the 6th floor of the cave, he is really an ordinary young man. When young people hear Tian's words full of ridicule, their cheeks suddenly become red. But at the moment, he also knows that Tian is not a ghost, nor a monster, but a man like him, but a powerful man. Then, he suddenly thought of a more terrible situation. He stole the wallet of such a strong man as Tian, which offended the other party. Didn't they just clean it up as they wanted? It doesn't matter if he's cleaned up, but without any hesitation, the young man immediately turned around, and Sayatsi was about to run towards a corner of the park. Want to escape? Tian sees the young man's action and laughs. He shows his cloud-shooting hand again. He wants to capture the boy and figure out his eccentricity. Shwa! At this time, the young man saw Tian reach out and put his hand in front of his trouser pocket. Then he hurriedly stretched out and grasped Tian's shoe. Ha! With the young man's help, Tian suddenly feels that he is ready to use the magic power of cloud-catching hand, but now it is gone. Then, from the young man, he felt a breath of mana fluctuation, and the breath, especially familiar, was not his mana chi. This boy can steal my mana. It's interesting. Tian was stunned, and immediately his smile was bright. Looking at the young man, he became more and more curious. It was the first time that he saw such a strange ability on Earth, and even in the square-inch spiritual realm, he had never encountered such a strange means. I warn you, in fact, I am also very powerful. If you come here again, I will be rude to you. At this time, the young man saw that Tian's amazing move had lost his power. He was overjoyed. He clenched his fists and looked at Tian's voice. I'll go one step further. What can you do to me? Tian picks eyebrows to smile lightly, like walking by the reins, and then takes another step forward. The young man gritted his teeth and did not dare to hesitate. He turned around and jumped up. Whoosh! However, what he didn't expect was that when he stepped out, his body jumped directly into the air. The wind was so loud that he couldn't help screaming and fell to the ground in a big shape. You can only steal mana, but you can't steal the method of using mana. Seeing this, Tian laughs and strides forward. The reason why young people fall is very simple. Because although the other side has just stolen the mana that Tian used to shoot clouds, they don't know how to operate it. They just let the mana flow with their body's instinct. But his mana is too exquisite. The young man takes a step, and the mana is beyond the limit of his body. He can't control it. So his body falls to the ground because of his imbalance. Aren't you going to be rude to me? Tian took a step forward, and his figure appeared in front of the young man like a ghost. He looked down at him and said, "How can you be rude to yourself first?" You. Looking at Tian's smile, the young man shrinks and retreats in panic. He really didn't understand why he just stepped out and jumped so high. But he knew that the strange situation should be related to Tian. Aren't you good at stealing? Come on, let me see how you stole it. If you perform well, I don't mind giving it back to you. Even, I can give you another sum of money, a figure you don't expect. Tian playfully looked at the young man, holding the pile of money, patted 2 times in the palm of his hand, and then said with a smile. Aye. Hearing this, the young man's eyes changed. He grabbed Tian a few times and threatened, I tell you, don't come here. Your strength has been stolen by me again. Come here again, or I'll kill you. Say you are stupid, you are really stupid, do you think I can't feel if you stole it? Tian looks at his appearance and laughs. Then he gently hooks his fingers and pulls the young man from the ground. The young man's cheeks were red, but he was helpless, and his eyes were full of fear. Yi Tian's method is unpredictable, which makes him even regret his intestines. If he knew it would be like this, even if he lent him 100 courage, he would never dare to do anything wrong to Yi Tian.
I can't steal, so it seems that there are times of use. Yi Tian waited for a moment.
Seeing that the young man didn't do anything, he immediately determined that the young man didn't steal his wallet and his mana by his own strength. Instead, he did it with the help of some strange spirit weapon, which should be limited in the number of times.
But even so, the ability to steal mana is really amazing.
At least, when Yi Tian was in Fangsu and Lingyu, he had never seen such a strange spirit instrument.
Take out the little things that help you steal from me.
Thinking of this, Yi Tian loosens his hand and puts the young man on the ground. Then he looks at him and smiles. The young man's eyes turned wildly around. I suggest you don't try to escape, and don't want to fight with me, otherwise, your end will be very ugly. Yi Tian looked at the young man's appearance, lightly pondering a word, immediately palm slightly move, a fireball fly up. Wait, if you really don't believe it, you can try to run fast, or this fireball fly fast.
This is a real fireball. And the heat is terrible.
The young man felt the terror of the fireball, his pupils shrank and his legs trembled.
He really can't understand.
How could Yi Tian's empty hands rub a fireball out so lightly? And this is not the kind of shibai goods when the magician does magic, but a real fireball. If it hits him, I'm afraid it won't take a few seconds to burn him to ashes.
How's it going? Have you thought it over? Yi Tian looks at the young man's appearance, picks the eyebrow to smile, plays the taste. Please, let me go. I know I'm wrong, but I really can't help it. Looking at Yi Tian, the young man knelt down and kowtowed to Yi Tian. Take out the little thing that helped you steal from me.
Yi Tian faintly smiles and looks at the taste of young people playing.
How do you know?
Hearing this, the young man looked at Yi Tian in dismay and said. But as soon as the words came out, he knew that his problem was really idiotic.
With Yi Tian's brilliant skill, and he is so weak, if Yi Tian can't think that he is relying on external force, he is a fool. I steal things by this glove. I picked it up from a cave when I was playing in the mountain. I took it to steal things without knowing it. However, I can only use it 3 times a week, and then it will lose its effect. The young man was dejected and lowered his head. After pulling on his right hand for a moment, he took down a translucent glove and handed it to Yi Tian. Seeing this, Yi Tian reaches for the glove. Hanyushan silk.
As soon as he felt the slightly cold, delicate and smooth touch of the gloves, Yi Tian immediately judged the material of the gloves, and his face was stunned. As the name suggests, Hanyushan silk is a kind of silk produced by a strange spirit beast called Hanyushan silk. This silk is inviolable to fire and water, invulnerable to weapons, and extremely light. Even if it is placed in the square-inch spirit realm, it is a very rare defensive weapon material. What's more, to Yi Tian's surprise, as far as he knows, the reason why the cold region silkworm is called the cold region silkworm is that this peculiar silkworm only grows in the square-inch spiritual region, which is covered with ice and snow all the year round. It's extremely cold and is called the cold region. It feeds on the special product of snow mulberry in the cold region. Snow mulberry is extremely rare, and the growth rate is very slow, so the number of silkworm in the cold region is also very good. As for the silk in the cold region, it is even more rare. When Yi Tian was in Fangsu and Lingyu, he made pills for a great friar of Yupujing in the cold region. The reward given by the other side was a long skirt made of silk from the cold region. The value of this dress can be seen.
As far as Yi Tian can see, the quality of Hanyushan silk used by the young man's glove is still on the train that the great friar of Yupujing gave Ningyao. Yi Tian was surprised that the unique cold region silk appeared on the earth, and its quality was so high. Immediately after that, Yi Tian sensed a kind of aura from his gloves, and the fluctuation was obviously quite strong, even made him feel that it was not under the fragments of the flying sword. Is it that the level of this strange glove has reached the level of a half-immortal soldier? This discovery makes Yi Tian's heart more agitated. He can't help but make waves. He immediately turns his head and looks at the young man who stares at him in disbelief and says, "What do you need to do to use this glove? It's strange.
It seems to understand what I'm saying, and it seems to convey some of its ideas to me.
When I come out to steal things, it's what it makes me do. As long as I want to use it, I silently say, let it help me. As long as I stretch out my hand, I can steal other people's wallets. Young people at the moment where dare to hide anything, will be all told Yi Tian can communicate.
Among the gloves, there was a spirit of instrument.
When Yi Tian heard the sound, he couldn't help taking a breath.
We should know that only the utensils at the level of Banxianbing can give birth to spiritual knowledge and develop it, just like living creatures, which can communicate with people. According to the young people, this glove can not only hear what people say, but also instigate young people to steal things. Its spiritual strength is far beyond the ordinary level of semi-immortal soldiers. Even at the moment, Yi Tian has some doubts. He can't rule out that this thing is an immortal soldier. What's more, the significance of an immortal soldier who appears on the earth, undamaged and spiritually alive, is immeasurable. Even Noda thinks that he may be able to explore the secrets of the long pass through it.
Shi Ling? You might hear me? Yi Tian doesn't have any hesitation.
He spreads his mind and goes to the glove to try to communicate with Shi Ling.
However, he has been waiting for a long time and has not received any feedback. Are you lying to me?
Seeing this, Yi Tian turns his head and looks at the young man.
His brows wrinkle and he says in a deep voice, I didn't lie to you. I'm telling you the truth. Sometimes some strange ideas come out of my head. My intuition is that it passed on to me. Maybe I ran out of times.
Wait and try again. Besides, if you think about it, how dare I cheat you now?
The young man immediately flustered, bitter face, tremble voice to Leaf Day explanation way. He doesn't look like a liar.
Yi Tian stares at the young man's eyes and feels that he is not lying.
He can't help but tell the truth.
He runs his mind again and throws himself into the glove. He takes some threats in his words and says slowly, if you can hear me but don't respond, don't blame me for being impolite.
How are you going to be rude to me? I'm invincible. What can you do for me? In my eyes, what's the difference between you, a little monk on the 6th floor of the cave, and that stupid boy?
Yi Tian's words fall down, and a lazy voice suddenly rings out in his mind, with disdain in his tone. He seems to look down on Yi Tian. This glove can really communicate with each other. In its interior, it really produces an artifact.
This is at least a half-immortal soldier.
However, it seems that the gloves are not very smart. Some of them don't like themselves. When Yi Tian heard this, he looked awe-inspiring. But immediately, a playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he said with a faint voice, if water and fire do not invade, and weapons do not invade, is it invincible?
I don't think so. I can't destroy you. Can't I disgust you? What do you think it would be like to be suppressed in a pit and be accompanied by excrement and urine every day? In that case, is it still your advantage to keep water and fire away?
You. Hearing the sound of the glove, he was a little silly, and even the glove itself was shaking slightly.
It really didn't expect that Yi Tian would threaten himself in such a way.
But as Yi Tian said, once he was really suppressed in the thatched cottage, his strength would become a weakness. Because it can't decay, it can't be destroyed, which means it has to bear more pain.
I don't believe it. Are you willing to throw a half-immortal soldier into the pit?
Soon, glove dexterity regained its composure and continued to ponder over the sound.
No matter who gets them, they will treasure them.
How can they be willing to throw them into the pit to suppress them? Although the Banxian soldiers are precious, I have owned several of them, and I haven't had them either.
A Banxian soldier who teaches people to be thieves has been suppressed. Why don't you be willing to? Yi Tian smiles indifferently.
What he said, half false and half true, is that if he got the half-immortal soldiers on the earth, he must be reluctant to suppress them.
It's true that when he was in Fengsuan spirit realm, his Danlu was a genuine immortal soldier.
He could communicate with him and give birth to a complete spirit. He could even fly out of the Danlu and exchange his attainments of Dandao with him. His face was red and his ears were red.
As for the half-immortal soldier, there were several more.
Although the silk gloves in the cold region are precious and special, it doesn't mean that Yi Tian will listen to them because of these. Whether they are semi-immortal soldiers or immortal soldiers, what can be controlled by themselves is a good thing.
What's the difference between what can't be controlled by themselves and the stinky and hard stones in the pit? Ever had a fairy soldier? What do you mean by that?
Yi Tian calm attitude, shocked to the glove spirit, lying for a long time, looking at Yi Tian confused questions.
Here's the money. You can go.
Yi Tianzhen didn't pay attention to the glove, and threw the pile of money that he had taken away from the young man by the cloud camera to the young man. With a sudden thought, he took out a thick pile of money of about 100,000 euros and threw it to the young man, saying, "This money should be enough for your expenses. Don't commit crimes in the future." But I left the glove. Young people look at the hands of a pile of extra thick euro, the whole person is dull.
He couldn't understand where Yi Tian had made so much money.
He was shocked that Yi Tian was so generous and casually gave him 100,000 euros, which was a big number. Why, too little? Yi Tian sees this, pick eyebrow a smile, looking at the young man light way.
Of course not, of course not.
The young man shook his head in a hurry. He stole more than 100,000 euros, which he could not steal in his whole life. Without any hesitation, he shook his head in a hurry, grabbed the thick stack of banknotes, turned around and trotted out of the park.
Hello, are you deaf? Can't you hear me? What do you mean to have had immortal soldiers? What is Zhang? Make it clear to me as soon as possible. When the glove spirit is silent, he is very silent. But when he is talking, he is also extremely talkative. He is constantly asking questions to Yi Tian. But it's a pity that Yi Tian ignored his words as if he didn't hear them. Ha ha ha, I see. You were just calling me Master Qiling, right? You don't know how to answer? I've seen a lot of people like you. Apart from bragging, they still boast. In fact, they have no ability at all. However, this aura is so rare that you can reach the 7th floor of the cave. How do you practice? Is there anyone better than you?
With the help of gloves and tools, he tries to find out from Yi Tian's mouth.
But Yi Tian doesn't care at all.
He takes out the fierce soldier's flying sword from the storage ring and takes the blade to pick the nail seam lightly.
Fierce soldier. Flying sword. How can you have such a thing? I've never seen anyone have such a thing. The glove weapon spirit was surprised, and asked in amazement.
Then, he made some more astonished discoveries, and said in amazement, "This little broken sword has the smell of a half-immortal soldier."
What's the matter? Zheng.
Although the flying sword is still a spirit weapon, it does not break through the magic weapon.
It is far less than the level of the half-immortal soldier and the immortal soldier.
Moreover, because of the melting of the flying sword fragment, it has a strong spirit. When the glove spirit falls, its sword edge trembles slightly to express dissatisfaction.
Hiss.
This little broken sword is quite fierce. His grandmother's, "You are a half-immortal soldier, dare to challenge me."
The glove is smart and humanized.
He takes a breath of cold air and immediately swears, just like a hooligan. I'm afraid that this glove has been used by many people in the world, and the people who handle it are not good birds. Otherwise, they will not be half-immortal soldiers. They have become such a jerk who talks and talks about me. Yi Tian listens to the voice of glove implement spirit, in the heart of a burst of speechless.
Ha!
But at this time, some scenes that Yi Tian expected appeared. The young man, who had just run away, turned back to the park, and ran straight over before he left. Why, I think the gloves are sold at a loss.
Do you want to order more?
Yi Tian picks eyebrow to smile lightly, looking at the young man, light ask a question, but deep in the words, already had some indifference. More than 100,000 euros, equivalent to the currency of Hong Kong Island, is already over 1 million. For young people, such a figure is indeed a big one, and it can make them live a good life. If young people get so much money and are not satisfied with it, it shows that this person's desires are hard to be leveled. Even if he gets millions of dollars, he may continue to go astray in the future. Yi Tian doesn't mind taking back all the money he gives.
No, you have given enough.
At this time, the young man, hearing the news, shook his head to Tian in a hurry, and then bit his lips. As if he had made any decision, he knelt down in front of Tian and kowed out 3 times to him, respectfully saying, "I came back to say thank you. You can rest assured that with this money, I can cure my sister's illness. At that time, I will find a serious job and never do such things again."
Treating my sister? When Tian heard the young man's words, he couldn't help looking at him curiously and said, "You came out to steal for the sake of treating your sister?"
"Yes.
My sister is very ill. I can't help it."
The young man nodded shyly. This stupid boy is very ignorant, and he has a poor courage to laugh. His sister is very ill, and he has my semi-immortal gloves in his hand. I advised him to steal things for more than 10 days. Besides, he didn't steal from the stall vendors. Those who have a lot of cash on them have to find those who are well dressed and don't take cash when they see them. At the same time, the glove weapon spirit seemed to look down on the young man's ridicule, and then said to Tian, "Such a stupid guy is really insulting our Bansian soldier. If I didn't see him bring me out of the mountain, I really want to give him some punches in the head to help him open up."
"What's wrong with your sister?" Tian didn't pay attention to the glove, but looked at the young man and asked.
"She had congenital heart disease since childhood, and has been taking medicine to maintain it. She was fine when she was a child, but now she is growing up, and the situation is more and more serious. She needs surgery for treatment, but I don't have so much money in my hand, so I have to be bewitched by it and go this wrong way." Hearing this, the young man lowered his head and said slowly, "It turns out that this guy has such an experience." Tian sees this, can't help looking at the young man with some sympathy. He thought that this guy came out to do something petty because he was short of money, but he didn't expect that he wanted to treat his sister. Although this guy's behavior is wrong, but it is also affectionate and righteous.
Tian knows about congenital heart disease.
This kind of disease, not to mention the huge cost of surgery, even if it's just hospitalization and the cost of taking medicine, is not affordable to ordinary people. This guy, I'm afraid, in his normal time, he always tries to earn money and help his sister buy medicine.
It's really not easy. What's demagogue? Master Benkeling is your guiding light.
Without the help of Master Benkeling several times, your sister would have been unable to hold up for a long time.
Now you dare to blame me.
Glove Spirit extremely indignant, loud doubt, but this voice, young people can't hear, can only reverberate in Tian's mind.
And your parents? Do they care? Tian doesn't bother to pay attention to the words, but he looks at the young man curiously and asks. I have no parents.
Hearing this, the young man immediately showed bitterness on his face, immediately pretended to be free and easy, shrugged his shoulders and said with a smile, My sister and I have been abandoned since childhood and grew up together in the orphanage. They are not blood relatives, but brothers and sisters in the orphanage.
Tian looks at the young man in amazement, and his eyes show a touch of shock.
Just now, he thought this guy was a little sentimental, but now, he really looked up at him. You know, although the brothers and sisters in the orphanage grew up together, they have no blood relatives after all. In this world, I'm afraid few people are willing to care so much about a person who has no blood relationship with them, let alone to treat her, even if they want to set up their own future. If we say that this is not to emphasize emotion and righteousness, there will be no one in the world who values emotion and righteousness.
Sorry, I don't know about it. Thinking of this, Tian looks at the young man and sincerely apologizes. Don't say that. I've been used to it for so many years.
When they abandoned me, I had nothing to do with them.
In my eyes, Xiaoyu is my closest person in the world.
When I first entered the orphanage, I was very lonely and always felt that the whole world was unfair to me. If Xiaoyu didn't help me, I'm afraid it would be two different opinions about whether I could live up to now. The young man waved his hand in fear, and looked at Tian in surprise. He really didn't expect that Tian, such a powerful man, would apologize to himself for such a thing.
This sum of money should be enough for your sister's operation. Don't delay. Go back to the hospital and operate on her as soon as possible. This kind of disease can be cured as soon as possible and relaxed as soon as possible.
Tian chuckles and looks at the young man. Congenital heart disease is not only very severe at the time of onset, but also a lot of things that need to be paid attention to at ordinary times. It's not only that we can't do any strenuous exercise, and even dare not have big mood fluctuations. Otherwise, it will easily lead to the occurrence of the disease, and if it's serious, we will lose our lives. When young people hear Yi Tian's words, they feel embarrassed and scratch their heads. They look at Yi Tian awkwardly. Why, is there not enough money? Yi Tian smell speech, Dao saw a young man one eye, some don't understand why he still don't leave. No, the money is enough. The young man waved his hand in a hurry, and then said sheepishly, in order to earn fast money, I sometimes associate with some unruly people. Xiaoyu is very tired of those people. Now I suddenly take such a large sum of money back. I'm afraid she will think more about what I'm doing in the rape department, so I hope you can help me explain that you are a charity foundation. What? So it is. Yi Tian couldn't help laughing at the sound. If you are in trouble, forget it. I'll ask other friends to help you. The young man looked at Yi Tian uneasily. Although he said this, he still had some hope in his eyes. Although he can really find other friends to help, the people he knows are not serious people. Xiaoyu is usually the most attentive. When he sees those people, he will definitely show his true feelings. But Yi Tian is not the same. He is a big man at first sight. Xiaoyu will believe what he says. No, I'll go and have a look. Maybe I can help you. The Leaf Day hears speech, lightly smile a, light way. The truth of this matter is a bit beyond his expectation, and it also makes him look at this young man with new eyes. Yi Tian doesn't mind helping this kind of person. Really? Hearing this, the young man immediately looked at Yi Tian with joy and said excitedly, Thank you so much. You're welcome. Go to the hospital. Yi Tian shook his head and said with a smile. Young people smell speech, hurried in front of the road, just walk, looking back at Yi Tian, it is a kind of dream feeling. He didn't expect that Yi Tian would give himself such a large sum of money after taking away the gloves. What's more, he would agree to his request when he ran back to Yi Tian for help. Thinking that his sister would soon be able to have an operation and recover, his heart was flying to the sky. What's your name? Yi Tian looks at the young man's nervous and joyful appearance and asks with a smile. Ah. The young man was stunned, stuttered, and speechless. What? I don't even know my name? Yi Tian looked at him, speechless smile, immediately said, I don't even know your name, when the time comes to your sister, isn't a word on the show. My name is Yan Liang, and my sister's name is Yen Pupu. Hearing this, the young man scratched his head in embarrassment, and then hurriedly told Yi Tian about his situation with Yen Pupu. With the young people's explanation, the context of the two people's situation has gradually become clear. Yan Liang and Yen Pupu share the same surname, which is just a coincidence. It is precisely because of this that Yan Liang and Yen Pupu feel close when he enters the orphanage. Yan Liang is a child abandoned by his parents. He has been tossing around in various welfare homes. He is a prick who likes to fight. It's hard to manage and teach him. However, it was only when he met Yen Pupu that he gradually changed his character and became less reckless. Later, when Yan Liang grew up to 18 years old, he graduated from technical school. After he found a job, the welfare institution no longer adopted him, but let him work hard in the society. Yen Pupu stayed in the welfare home because of his congenital heart disease. However, because of the limited conditions in the welfare home, Yan Liang went to the welfare home and proposed to take Yen Pupu out after his stable work. Yen Pupu's condition is very special. The welfare home has been worried about her accident, and is happy that someone will take care of her, so it agrees. From then on, it is their brother and sister who depend on each other. However, Yen Pupu is getting older and his condition is getting worse. Yan Liang can't earn much money from his work. There is little money left after the rent and Yen Pupu's medical expenses are removed. Therefore, Yen Pupu's accident leads him to steal things. It's not easy for Yan Liang. Yi Tian listened to Yan Liang's words, and his eyes were filled with emotion. He knew that although Yan Liang spoke casually at the moment, looking at the calluses on this guy's hands, the pair of washed white shoes on his feet, and the same faded jeans, we can imagine that he must have had a very hard time these years.
What's more, it's not easy to stick to it even though it's so hard. Master Yi, don't look at me like this. In fact, I think it's very good.
You don't know that for children like us who grew up in an orphanage, it's actually a gift from heaven to have someone to take care of them. Yan Liang see Tian's eyes, immediately understand his meaning, smile.
As he said, what children in welfare homes lack most is family affection and warmth.
In the past, why Yan Liang liked to fight was that he wanted to use this method to attract other people's attention and to be seen by others. Unfortunately, the eyes he got by those methods were disgusting, or sympathetic. But it was not until he met Yen Pupu that he really met a person who really cared about him, a person who cared about him, but was not disgusted or sympathetic. It's true that he is taking care of Yen Pupu, but in a sense, Yen Pupu also gives Yan Liang a kind of family comfort, letting him know that he is not a dispensable person in this world. No matter what he does outside, no matter how hard he tries, we all know that there is such a person waiting for him to go home and need his care. Therefore, such a life, for Yan Liang, is bitter, but not bitter.
I understand. Yi Tian smell speech, light smile nodded. Do you understand? Yan Liang looked at Yi Tian in some consternation, some doubt.
My parents are gone, too. After their death, I went to a place and stayed for a long time.
No one knew me or who I was. If it wasn't for her. Yi Tian sighs gently, and his eyes show strong nostalgia and yearning.
When his parents died, he was no different from an orphan. At that time, it was Ning Yao who gave him warmth and became the light in his life.
Without that light, Yi Tian didn't know what he would have become in the square-inch spiritual realm.
Ning Yao is the light in his life, while Yen Pupu was the light in Yan Liang's heart. This light, perhaps not bright enough, but enough to illuminate their lives, so that their dry heart give birth to a glimmer of hope.
Yan Liang looked at Yi Tian in amazement.
He didn't expect that Yi Tian had such an experience.
Moreover, Yi Tian's tone made him feel confused. He didn't know why.
He felt that Yi Tian's sentence sounded like a lifetime for a long time. But Yi Tian's age seems to be different from him. How can he have such a long experience?
Boy, where have you been for a long time? Did you get your accomplishments in that place? It's not only Yan Liang, but also Tang Kailing who has captured some crucial information. He keeps asking Yi Tian to get the answer. Everything will be fine.
Yi Tian ignores the glove, sighs a little, looks at Yan Liang and says with a smile.
Well, it's going to get better.
Yan Liang nodded heavily, his eyes were full of hope, and then he looked at Yi Tian gratefully. He believes that when Yen Pupu's condition improves, their lives will change dramatically, and this change is due to Yi Tian.
Without him, Yan Liang doesn't know what he will do. Damn boy, are you deaf? Can't you hear me? The glove's aura is in a state of emergency, constantly questioning Yi Tian, trying to get the answer.
But it's a pity that Yi Tian made up his mind to hang it at the moment.
He didn't pay any attention to it at all.
He just lumped it into a ball and stuffed it into his pocket. A few minutes later, the taxi went to the hospital.
Brother, you're back.
When Yan Liang appeared at the door of the ward, inside the ward, a young girl with a pretty face, but pale and slightly blue cheeks, immediately raised her head and said happily. Yan Liang smiles and is about to respond. He can see that several young people are sitting on the side of the ward against the wall. They are looking at him smilingly, and their eyes are full of fun. These guys are not good things. Not only Yan Liang, but Yi Tian also noticed these young people, and from them, he felt a kind of evil spirit that would only come after his hands were stained with human life, and his brows could not help wrinkling.
Yan Liang, you are back.
At this time, the black-faced man sitting in the center stood up and looked at Yan Liang with a smile.
Brother, they say they are your friends. They have been waiting for you here for a long time. They say they have something important to discuss with you.
Yen Pupu sees this and explains to Yi Tian in a hurry. Of course, brother, how is my best friend?
Hearing this, Yan Liang quickly smiles at Yen Pupu.
He quickly walks to the black-faced man. After saying hello, he smiles to Yen Pupu and says, Pupu, I'll go out with brother how to talk about something.
I'll come back and tell you some good news later.
After that, Yan Liang immediately asked for a look at the black-faced man.
Pupu, I'm going to talk to Yan Liang. You're very well. Yan Liang's sister is my sister. I'll come to see you often. If anyone in the hospital dares to bully you, you can tell Brother Hao that I'll make the decision for you. The black-faced man looked at Yan Liang and gave him a playful smile. Then he turned his head and looked at Yan Pu with a smile. Then he winked at the people around him and immediately walked towards the door of the ward. Yan Liang see this, toward Yan Pu smile, quickly followed out, and then carefully closed the door. Brother Hao, what can I do for you? Just call me. Why come to the hospital for a visit? As soon as the door of the ward was closed, Yan Liang immediately showed a flattering smile and looked at Brother Hao and said, If you don't come to the hospital, how can I know that you still have such a beautiful sister, and you are so kind to her, and you are so affectionate to your brother and sister? How elder brother hears sound, picked eyebrow, looking at Yan Liang to ponder to smile away. Brother Hao, if you have anything to do, come to me. Don't make poo-poo. She is innocent. What's more, I'm a relative like poo-poo in this world. If anyone dares to do anything to her, I'll spare my life to protect her. When Yan Liang heard this, his face turned white and he bit his teeth, half praying and half threatening. What do you mean, Yan Liang? Brother Hao is kind enough to come to see your sister. If you don't thank him, you dare to threaten him. I think you've got itchy skin. I'll apologize to Brother Hao right away. As soon as Yan Liang's words came out, several strong men who followed him immediately stepped forward and threatened coldly. What? Is there any trouble? Seeing this, Tian took a step forward and patted Yan Liang on the shoulder, smiling. Who is he? How elder brother toward Leaf Sky down swept an eye, then looking at Yan Liang, Wei. He is a friend of mine. Yan Liang explained in a hurry, then looked at Brother Hao and said with a smile, Brother Hao, you know, I didn't mean that. We brothers, I don't know what you mean. Don't worry, I won't be angry. Brother Hao looks at Tian when he hears Yan Liang's words. He doesn't care about his elegant dress. Instead, he embraces Yan Liang's shoulder and says with a smile, Yan Liang, actually, I'm here to ask you to help me. Moreover, this is actually a good thing. As long as you are willing to help me, you can rest assured that I'll pay for your sister's operation. Brother Hao, you are joking. You are a big businessman. How can I help you? When Yan Liang heard this, his face immediately became flustered, and then he said with a smile. Boy, Brother Hao asked for your help. That's very impressive. How dare you push and block? You are so ungrateful. Do you want us to call your sister out and help you judge? On hearing Yan Liang's words, the strong men immediately turned cold and scolded. Get out of the way, I'm looking for Yan Liang's help, not to scare him. Seeing this, Brother Hao looked at some of his subordinates and scolded. Then he hugged Yan Liang's shoulder with a smile and said, Yan Liang, don't worry. What I asked you to help is actually very simple. For you, it's like lifting a hand. I just hope you can help me steal something. Stealing? Brother Hao, you're joking. I don't have that ability. You've got a lot of good hands. If you don't come up with a big man of the level of stealing saints, don't be hard on me. When Yan Liang heard this, he was stunned, and then he said with a smile. Yan Liang, you are a little dishonest now. When Brother Hao heard Yan Liang's words, he slowly raised his hand holding Yan Liang's shoulder. Then he looked at him playfully, turned his head to one of his subordinates and said, Yan Liang has a bad memory. You can help him remember his ability. Yan Liang, what did you do in Tigutang last Tuesday? Did you steal a wallet from a boss in black leather? I stole a watch from a girl in a skirts bag. In the evening, I stole a purse from a boss who went to a bar in Prince's Lane. This Tuesday, in front of a group of bodyguards at the foot of Shizifang Mountain, I stole a boss's purse. Hearing this, the strong man looked at Yan Liang playfully and read a long list of achievements with a smile. Hearing this, Yan Liang could not help looking at Brother Hao and said in a trembling voice, Brother Hao, you are monitoring me. Watching you? Haha, you think so much, but some of my subordinates happened to see it, and then I let them follow you and enjoy your amazing technology. Otherwise, how can you know that you are a thief who only knows to follow us? Brother Hao looks at Yan Liang with a smile, playing with the taste. Yan Liang's face was hard to see the extreme. He thought that he had done all these things without being aware of them, but he didn't expect that they had already fallen into other people's eyes and had to be helped by others. Yan Liang, with your ability, what I ask you to do is nothing more than lifting a finger. If you love your sister so much, you can't bear to see her suffer. If you think about it, just steal something from me, you can get your favorite sister out of the pain. What a good deal it is. How elder brother Light smile repeatedly, then again embrace Yan Liang's shoulder, smile way, Yan Liang, you are a smart person, how to do, I think you should know better than anyone. Brother Hao, I've already washed my hands. I won't do these things anymore. You can find someone else. Yan Liang's face changed, and then prayed to look at Brother Hao. Not to mention that now he has given Yi Tian that strange glove, even if he is not willing to help Hao Gu. Because, Brother Hao's road has been very wild, and he always does great things. Every time he does something, he will get involved in human life. He steals things to help Yan Pupu earn money for medical treatment and medicine, but he doesn't want to take his own life into it. It doesn't matter if he lost his life, but in case he had an accident, Yan Pu would have no one to take care of him. Wash your hands in the golden basin? When Brother Hao heard Yan Liang's words, he immediately pulled down his face and made a mockery. Yan Liang, you are so shameless. Brother Hao kindly asked you to help and treat your sister's illness. You even tried to put off everything, and you didn't wash your hands in the golden basin. Now that we wash our hands in the golden basin, do you treat us as fools? I think you're toasting instead of being punished. When he heard Hao Ji's words, his followers immediately showed a grim smile on their faces. The man nearest to Yan Liang held out his hand and grabbed Yan Liang's neck. He lifted him up from the ground and threatened coldly, I tell you, today's busy, you have to help, or you don't have to help, otherwise, you'll wait to collect the body for your sick sister. You. When Yan Liang heard this, he burst into a rage and raised his foot to kick the strong man. Yan Pupu is the most important person in his heart. He is threatened by the other party. How can he bear it? Bang! But without waiting for his words to fall, Brother Hao suddenly turned cold and hit Yan Liang's stomach with a heavy blow. Brother Hao obviously had some kung fu in his hand. With this blow, Yan Liang immediately arched his body like a shrimp. His nose and eyes were crowded together. His nose, tears, and cold sweat all flowed down. Yan Liang, do you want to help or not? I advise you to weigh carefully. My patience is not so good. After that, Brother Hao raised his hand, grasped Yan Liang's scalp, lifted his head up, looked into his eyes and said coldly. Yan Liang's eyes were red. Looking at his ferocious Brother Hao, he felt that his intestines were almost blue. If I had known that, even if I killed him, he would never have been fooling around with no 3 no 4 people. In that case, he would not have come into the sight of Brother Hao, and there would not be such things at the moment. You don't have to force him. Even if you force him to death, he can't help you. But at this time, Yi Tian, who had been standing at the door, suddenly looked at Hao Gu and others, and then turned to look at Yan Liang and said, How do you feel? Does it hurt? Do you regret it? Master Yi. Yan Liang looks at Yi Tian in pain, and his eyes are full of regret. This boy, after eating this cut, can be regarded as a wise man. Yi Tian looked at Yan Liang's regretful eyes, nodded slightly, and curved his mouth. At the beginning, he didn't help Yan Liang solve the problem because he was very worried. After Yan Pupu's illness was cured, Yan Liang didn't change his money, and he was still living with a lot of people. At that time, he would suffer a lot. Now, let this boy suffer a little in the hands of these gangsters. By the way, let these people threaten him again, and let him understand what will happen if he follows these people. Although Yi Tian could warn Yan Liang of these words, he didn't experience them for a long time. Master, ha ha ha, Yan Liang, are you out of your mind to call such a boy as master? Are you stupid to watch martial arts movies? When those gangsters heard Yan Liang's address to Yi Tian, they couldn't help laughing wildly. What do you mean by that? And how elder brother also full face ponder of looking at Leaf Day, Light Way. It's very simple. He can't help you with those things. Not now, not in the future. Yi Tian shrugged his shoulders and said faintly, because he no longer has that ability. No more? The ability to steal, can you say there is, say no?
His hand is still good, and his tendon hasn't been broken. Brother Hao sneered, and then said, I warn you, right and wrong are due to more mouth, none of your business, had better get away.
Why don't I go?
I suggest you go away quickly.
I'm not very good-tempered.
Yi Tian smiles indifferently, looks at Brother Hao and says faintly, otherwise, when my temper comes up, you ought to go away, I'm afraid you don't have that ability.
Boy, you really don't know who you are. Let's get out of here. You'd better practice how to get out first.
Yi Tian's words fall down, and Hao Ji's men immediately burst into a rage, swearing toward Yi Tian. They want to give the blind guy a little bitter taste, and let him know what the truth is that misfortune comes from the mouth.
It seems that you really don't appreciate it.
Yi Tian looks at the two strong men who are rushing over, smiles and shakes his head. In a moment, he raises his hand lightly and waves his fist to them. His action, understatement, seems to drive away two flies, there is no difference.
Click.
Ah! But almost at the moment when his hand touched the two strong men's arms, two clear breaking sounds suddenly rang out. Immediately after that, the two men howled like pigs, covered their arms, fell to the ground and rolled around in pain. This Brother Hao looked at the scene in front of him, his eyes full of disbelief. These two of his men are already very good at fighting. He thought they would beat Yi Tian all over the place to find his teeth. But who knows, it's not Yi Tian but his people who are fighting all over the place now. I said, my temper is not very good. Yi Tian swept his eyes at the two people rolling on the ground, looked at Brother Hao and said faintly, how can you just be disobedient?
You who the hell are you?
Brother Hao looks at Yi Tian with fright, and his face is full of disbelief.
Yi Tian looks like a college student, and he's thin. He doesn't look like a practitioner at all.
If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he couldn't believe that such a man could just crush two ants and put his two good hands on the ground and break their bones.
You know, human bones are extremely hard.
Even if ordinary people smash a steel tube, they can't break the bones, let alone with one hand.
What are you going to do? Are you going to get out of here, or am I going to help you?
And at this time, Yi Tian looks at Hao elder brother to pick eyebrow to smile, light way.
Aye.
Hao elder brother hears the sound and wakes up like a dream. After staring at Yi Tian, his eyes suddenly become ferocious. He coldly says, boy, I don't care who you are, but you dare to interfere with us in the event. I don't know how to die, believe it or not.
So it seems that you are going to let me help you.
Hearing this, Yi Tian picks his eyebrows with a faint smile and immediately steps forward. He is too lazy to talk to the so-called Hao Gu Duo. With a shake of his hand, he directly throws him into the corridor and makes him roll down the steps like a street mouse.
You two, do you want to get out of here or let me help you?
Closely following, the Leaf Day is looking at those two still on the ground painful miserable howl of guy, light way. The two guys see, or dare to say half a word more, struggling to stand up from the ground, will flee.
Didn't you hear me? It's for you to get out of here, not for you to go.
But at this time, Yi Tian looked at their back, playing with the taste.
You.
Hearing this, the two strong men's faces were almost purple. Their arms were broken now. If they rolled away like this, their arms would be useless.
Why, do you want me to help you?
Leaf Day pick eyebrow, ponder a.
Two strong men shudder. They are not fools.
If they roll by themselves, they should only hurt their arms a little more seriously.
But if Yi Tian is allowed to do it, it will be miserable.
It's two people who say whether they are alive or not. Thinking of this, the two did not dare to have any hesitation. They looked at each other and quickly fell on the ground and rolled forward into the corridor.
Heshingwei?
What is it? Yi Tian waited until the group left, looking at Yanliang slowly. Heshingwei is the largest prefix on Hong Kong Island, that is, the largest guild. There are many younger brothers under it, and they are very strong. Brother Hao is a small leader of Heshingwei. When I was working, I met several people under him. I heard that it's fast to come with them, and I think it's very powerful. If I join them, no one will dare to bully me and poo-poo again, so I just follow them for a while, hoping to join Heshingwei. But later, I found out that Brother Hao was doing business by chopping people.
He was very ruthless. He would get involved in human life, so he gradually alienated. I didn't expect that.
When Yan Liang heard this, his face was full of remorse and he said the cause and effect slowly. When Poo Poo's illness is over, it's better to take good care of him and find a serious job than anything else. If you want others to look up to you, you don't have to go astray, but you have to be upright and have your own ability.
Yi Tian knew this for a long time.
He shook his head and said slowly.
I remember.
When Poo Poo is ready, I'll find a factory to work, go to night school, get a certificate, and be a respectable person.
Yan Liang nodded hard and said sincerely.
Today's events have made him see the real face of these people. These guys always call him brother when they come into contact with each other, but in fact, they regard him as a pawn to be used. When he is willing to help, he is a brother.
When he is not willing to help, he is an enemy.
Mr. Yi, I'm sorry, because of my business, you got into trouble with the grand meeting.
They are very powerful. Do you want to avoid them?
Closely following, Yan Liang suddenly thought of the words that Hao elder brother left behind, nervously looking at Yi Tian, saying,
Powerful? Yi Tian smiles and looks at Yan Liang confidently. Do you think they can hold my fireball?
Hearing this, Yan Liang shook his head in a hurry. The fireball made by Yi Tian in the park before is extremely terrible, which can't be resisted by flesh and blood at all.
Although Heshingwei was strong, it was just strong, far less than Yi Tian's inhuman level.
Others may be afraid of Heshingwei, but in Yi Tian's eyes, Heshingwei is nothing at all. Think of here, Yan Liang look at Yi Tian's eyes, involuntarily and a bit more worship color. If he can be as strong as Yi Tian, I'm afraid Poo Poo's disease has been cured, and who dares to look down on him? Let's go and see Poo Poo and tell her the good news. Yi Tian looks at Yan Liang's expression, smiles and shakes his head, then says, Well. Yan Liang heard the sound, his eyes immediately showed a touch of excitement, and nodded vigorously.
Brother, you are back. Where are your friends just now? Yi Tian and Yan Liang walk into the ward.
Yan Poo Poo smiles immediately, and then looks curiously behind the door.
They had something to do, so they left first.
Yan Liang explained in a hurry.
Brother, your friends look fierce. They don't look like good people.
You'd better not associate with them anymore in the future.
Hearing this, Yan Poo was relieved and told Yan Liang. Well, I'll never be with them again.
When Yan Liang heard this, his face turned red and he nodded his head. Then he showed his joy. He took out the euro from Yi Tian in his pocket and put it on the bedside.
He said to Yan Poo Poo, brother has raised money. I'll go to the doctor and ask them to prepare for it.
I'll do it for you as soon as possible, and you'll be like a normal person soon.
How are you, happy or not?
Yan Poo Poo looked at the thick pile of money. Instead of showing joy, he suddenly became nervous and said to Yan Liang, Brother, where do you get the money?
So much money. Yan Liang hears the sound and looks at Yi Tian in a hurry.
Brother, what do you say?
How did you get the money?
I really want to get better and become like a normal person, but you can't do anything stupid for me. This money, you return quickly, I don't do the operation.
If you don't, I'll cough.
Yan Poo Poo saw that he didn't speak, but looked at Yi Tian, more nervous, urgent voice. And just like that, her face became white, her forehead was covered with sweat, her eyebrows were twisted into a knot in one's heart, and she coughed low, and her body was twitching slightly.
Poo Poo, don't worry.
Seeing this, Yan Liang hurried to the hospital bed, gently helped Yan Poo Poo to smooth his back heart, and said, Don't worry, I didn't get the money by doing bad things. I didn't steal it or rob it.
It's clean money. Then why do you have so much money?
Yan Poo Poo frowned and looked at Yan Liang, puzzled. Not long ago, Yan Liang was short of her medical expenses, but now she has so much money to spend that she can't help thinking about it. Although she hopes to get medical treatment, she doesn't want to. When she gets better, she takes Yan Liang's whole life. In that case, she has no way to forgive herself in her life, and she is not willing to take such money to change her destiny. This girl is also affectionate and righteous.
Yi Tian looks at Yan Poo's appearance and nods slightly in his heart.
If Yen Pu sees money and doesn't care about anything, it shows that she is taking advantage of Yen Liang's kindness to her.
If so, Yi Tian will get justice for Yen Liang.
But now, Yen Pu is so nervous that in her opinion, Yen Liang's life and future are far more important than her illness. These two brothers and sisters are really helping each other with the same friendship.
Pooh, you don't have to be so nervous. Yen Liang is right. Yen Liang didn't snatch the money or steal it.
Thinking of this, Yi Tian stepped forward, looked at Yen Pu and said with a smile, "This money is for your brother and sister."
You lent it to my brother? Yen Pu was stunned and stared at Yi Tian, then said, "Brother, who is this big brother?"
Pooh, it's like this. I'm in charge of a charity fund.
I happened to meet Yen Liang and heard about you, so I decided to help your brother and sister and give you a sum of money to treat you. Don't worry, these are clean money.
Yen Liang didn't get it by devious ways.
Just use it.
If you still need it in the operation, our charity foundation will continue to provide you with some assistance. Yi Tian hears the sound, looks at Yen Pu, smiles and explains.
Brother, is that true?
Looking at Yi Tian's frank expression and his calm smile, Yen Pu turned to look at Yen Liang and said,
It's true. Mr. Yi is the head of a charity fund. After hearing about you, he gave me the money to help you treat your illness.
Yen Liang looks at Yi Tian gratefully, then holds Yen Pu's hand and says, Pu, don't worry.
When you get well, I will earn more money. I will go to all parts of the world with you. I won't do anything stupid. Thank you, Mr. Yi, thank you. When Yen Pu heard Yen Liang's words, he finally believed them.
He looked at Yi Tian gratefully with tears in his eyes.
It's all right. It's just a little help. The slogan of our charity fund is to help people to be happy.
Yi Tian smiles, then looks at Yen Liang and says, Yen Liang, talk to your brother and sister first. Later, you come out with me to find a doctor and learn more about Pu's condition. He knew that the brothers and sisters must have a lot to say. Moreover, if the trouble of Heshenghui is not solved, even if Yen Pu is treated, the tragedy may still happen to the brothers and sisters. Therefore, he is not in a hurry to leave, but intends to help Yen Liang solve the trouble before leaving.
Good. Yen Liang nodded in a hurry and looked at Yi Tian gratefully. After Yi Tian left, Yen Pu looked out of the door and said to Yen Liang, Brother, that Mr. Yi is really a good man. Yes, he is a good man.
We brothers and sisters should be grateful for the good people all our lives. Hearing this, Yen Liang immediately nodded heavily.
After Yen Liang and Yen Pu talk for a while, they go out of the ward and come to the door.
They see Yi Tianzhang waiting for himself on the bench at the door.
Thank you, Mr. Yi. Without you.
When Yen Liang saw Yi Tian, he immediately bowed to the ground, then his voice choked. As he said, if there is no Yi Tian, even if he has that pair of magic gloves, he can't get money for Yen Pu's treatment. Maybe he will agree to Brother Hao's invitation to help them commit crimes. In that case, it must not be a good end to wait for him. But Yi Tian's appearance helped their brother and sister, and even changed their fate. All this, how can he not thank Yi Tian? The pair of gloves you gave me is worth the price, and you helped yourself.
Yi Tian waved his hand to show Yen Liang not to be so polite.
A pair of semi-immortal soldier's gloves is worth more than 100,000 euros.
It's really a good price.
If other mountain people and the mountain clan know about it, they will be forced to rob it. Not only that, but also Yen Liang and Yen Pu's brother and sister are deeply attached to each other, which moves Yi Tian. If Yen Liang is a kind of rogue thief, Yi Tian will not give him any money, even if he doesn't clean him up its high incense.
Let's go.
While I'm still on Hong Kong Island, I'll help you solve the trouble of the party and save those flies to trouble your brother and sister.
Closely following, Yi Tian looks at Yen Liang and says with a smile. What do you mean, Mr. Yi?
Yen Liang hears the news and looks at Yi Tian tremblingly. From Yi Tian's words, he feels a sense of war, just like Yi Tian plans to turn over the whole hushing meeting with his own strength.
Why do you think I'm bragging that I can't do it? Yi Tian looks at Yen Liang's expression, picks eyebrow to smile lightly, plays the taste. Dare not.
Yen Liang nodded in a hurry, but he couldn't believe it in his eyes. He knows that Yi Tian is very strong, especially when he makes fireballs.
It's amazing, but it's not easy to get into trouble with grand gatherings.
They are the biggest prefix on Hong Kong Island and have been handed down for nearly 200 years.
There are many people who can fight, and there are also heavy and light firearms.
Such a gang, Tian want us single-handedly to pick, how can people not think it is a dream?
Just, he respects Leaf Day, can't tell the truth in the heart just. Yes, no, don't play with me. Yi Tian shook his head and said. Master, Heshinghui is very strong. They have guns in their hands. I suggest you don't go. I have a plan. When Poo-Poo's operation is finished, I'll take her to Haojiang.
I have a friend who works as an official in the gambling house of Old Gambling King He over there.
His income is okay.
Although Heshinghui is fierce, he can't extend his tentacles to the territory of Old Gambling King He in Haojiang.
Yan Liang embarrassed smile, then Wei.
Don't worry, take me to the site of the fair.
Even if they have guns, nothing will happen.
Hearing this, Yi Tian shook his head with a smile, and then said, but after the event is finished, if you really want to go to Haojiang, you can tell me.
I'll ask Old Gambler He to find you a job. Do you know Old Gambler He?
Yan Liang hears the sound and looks at Yi Tian tremblingly.
He Old Gambler, that is what a big man, he did not expect, Yi Tian said, like an old friend.
If you don't want to leave Hong Kong Island and want to work at Jai's, I can help you too. Leaf Daylight Smile A, Light also said a sentence.
Jai family.
Yan Liang has been completely confused, his eyes staring at Yi Tian.
Whether he is the Old Gambler of Haojiang or Zai's family of Hong Kong Island, they are all the top figures in both Hong Kong Island and Haojiang.
Compared with them, Hushing Meeting is fierce, but it's just a small fight. Even the biggest man of Hushing Meeting has to be respectful to see them. But now, on Yi Tian's side, these two big people can shake Hong Kong Island and Haojiang by stamping their feet, but they seem to be able to see each other casually.
With a word, they can influence each other's thoughts.
How can all this not shock people? Then, led by Yan Liang, who seems to be walking on the clouds, Yi Tian comes to Jianhaiao.
Is in the open sea of the Tian Hai and the Shenghui.
In this place, there is a saying that during the day, the matter of the sharp sea is controlled by the police. But after the sun goes down, everything has the final say of the peace conference. It's not that the Hong Kong Island police have never thought of attacking the Heshinghui, but the Heshinghui has been handed down for more than 200 years, and its tentacles have penetrated into all aspects of Jianhaiao, so they can't grasp each other's handle at all. When Yi Tian, led by Yan Liang, comes to Jianhaiao, Brother Hao is kneeling in front of Qin Lo, who is in conversation with Husheng, with a runny nose and tears, talking about what happened in the hospital. Qin Lo looks at Brother Hao with no expression on his face, but a middle-aged man beside him has a thoughtful look on his face. Jimmy, take some people with you to help Ahao settle the matter.
Didn't he break Ahao's 3 ribs? Then we'll waste his 2 hands and 1 foot.
After listening to Brother Hao's words, Qin Lo turned to look at a young man with a cold and dark face and said in a deep voice.
Yes, Godfather. Hearing this, Jimmy immediately looks at Qin Lo, bows and nods. Wait a minute.
But at this moment, the middle-aged man beside Qin Lo suddenly waved his hand. When Jimmy stopped, he looked at Hao Gu on the ground and said, You just said that boy is very good at stealing.
He can steal his wallet in front of more than a dozen bodyguards? Yes. The boy didn't show up before.
I didn't expect that he had such a good hand with him.
Brother Hao nodded in a hurry. No mountain, no dew, suddenly become a master thief.
Hearing this, the middle-aged man suddenly turned his head to look at Qin Lo and said, Lashao, I'll go with him.
That glove is a bit like what I'm looking for. Mr. Zhuang, you're joking. I've seen Yan Liang.
He's just a coward.
Are you sure he can have what you're looking for?
Hearing this, Qin Lo looks at the middle-aged man in surprise and doubts. Master Zhuang, whose real name is Zhuangcheng, is a strange man whom Qin Yu met by chance. He is extremely skillful. Even among the legendary mountain people, he is a top master. It is said that he is the cultivation of the later heaven level. Not long ago, several of Qin Li's competitors were killed by Zhuang Chang. That's why Qin Latsai was so awed by Zhuang Cheng that he called him Zhuang Yi.
He wanted to win over each other and become a member of the Heshinghui. He wanted to take the Heshinghui one step further, including all the prefixes of Hong Kong Island, to dominate the underground forces of Hong Kong Island and become a unique prefix. As for Qin Li's feeling, Zhuang Cheng seems to be more interested in Heshinghui and has the same idea as him. It's just that Qin Li didn't expect that Zhuang Cheng would be interested in Yan Liang's minions, and he thought that he was looking for something in each other's body. Le Xiao, you don't know something. What I'm looking for doesn't necessarily fall into the hands of experts. It can also be obtained by ordinary human-computer coincidence. Yan Liang's method is very similar to the secret hand I'm looking for. That thing can help people steal things without knowing it. Even ordinary people who can't be more ordinary can become the characters of stealing saints when they get that glove?
Zhuang Cheng chuckles and explains to Qin Lu.
A glove can turn an ordinary person into a master thief like a thief?
Qin Lu looks at Zhuang Cheng in surprise, shocked.
However, think about it carefully.
The last time he saw Yan Liang, the boy was so angry that he asked him to cut off a person and give him a name certificate. He was so scared that his face turned white.
He never appeared again.
Such a package, if not really get what strange baby, really cannot become like this. At this time, Yi Tian, under the leadership of Yan Liang, came to the hometown of Heshinghui.
It has to be said that Heshinghui is extremely arrogant.
This kind of underground forces usually hide and dare not show their faces to others. However, Heshinghui is so good that it even built the headquarters like a top-level guild hall, which is resplendent, and even hung the 3 words Heshinghui on the front door of the guild hall with a black gilded plaque. This arrogance is enough to show the strength of the grand gathering on Hong Kong Island.
Mr. Yi, you really need to think about it clearly. There were a lot of people who were looking for trouble in the past, but the fate of those people was not very good.
When Yan Liang saw the plaque of the grand meeting, he shivered and looked at Yi Tian Dao. What he said was not to scare Yi Tian, but to tell the truth. Heshinghui was domineering and provoked many enemies.
Many people wanted to pay them, but as long as they entered Heshinghui, none of them would come out.
In a few days, they would find their bodies on the high seas. Although Yi Tian is very strong, he is really worried about what will happen if Yi Tian comes here so rashly.
No one can do anything to them, because I haven't come yet.
Yi Tian light smile, hand a yang, a wind blade fly out, then heavily fell on the plaque in grand meeting. Click boom after the wind blade hit the plaque, the thick red sandalwood board immediately broke into 2 pieces, fell down and made a thunderous sound.
Boy, who are you?
You dare to make trouble in our place and the grand meeting. Seeing the plaque falling, the 2 gangsters standing at the door turned their heads and saw Yi Tian and Yan Liang standing not far away. They immediately raised their baseball bats and strode forward. As they walked, they cheered angrily.
Yi Tianzhen didn't want to talk to them. Once he raised his hand, several wind blades flew out and landed on the baseball bat. Click. Click. Click.
Accompanied by a crisp sound, the baseball bat made of refined steel broke into 2 pieces and fell to the ground.
Mr. Yi He. Yan Liang looks at Yi Tian with tremor. He doesn't respond for a long time.
He doesn't understand how Yi Tian raised his hand, and the baseball bat held by those gangsters broke into 2 pieces. I'm afraid it's not too much to say that such means are immortals. You. Yan Liang is still like this, not to mention the 2 thugs holding baseball bats.
Seeing this scene, the whole person is dull.
Look at the neat fracture surface of baseball bats, and then look at Yi Tian. He opens his mouth wide, just like seeing a ghost in broad daylight.
Get out of here. Yi Tian glanced at them indifferently.
With a swing of his hand, a surge of air pushed them aside and walked to the gate of the grand meeting. He suddenly raised his foot and kicked them heavily.
Boom! This foot, with great force, sank and fell.
The gate of Heshinghui Hall immediately fell to the ground, splashing countless smoke and dust. Yan Liang, smelly boy, I haven't come to you yet.
You've come to the grand meeting with me by yourself.
Almost at the same time when the door was kicked open, Brother Hao and Qin Lu and others heard the news and came over. When they saw the murderous Yi Tian and Yan Liang, Brother Hao immediately yelled at him. Then he turned to look at Qin Lu and said, Brother Lu, it's this boy who beat me.
Did you heard how? Get down on your knees right now and get rid of your hands and feet. I can give you a life. Xinyu hears the sound and glances at Yi Tian.
It's him. How could it be him? No, he's dead, but in this world, how can there be such a similar person? At this time, Chuang Chang, who was beside Xin Lu, has already seen Yi Tian. When he saw Yi Tian's face, the corner of his eyes immediately jerked, and his face showed a thick color of disbelief. But the next second, he quickly lowered his head and hid the shock in his heart. There's a mountain man, and he's heaven level. At the same time, Yi Tian also glances at Xin Lu and the people around him, and then quickly notices Zhuang Cheng's body, which exudes the popularity of the Tianji mountain.
This guy, hollow head, he doesn't want me to see his face, recognize who he is, or hide something.
Yi Tian sees this, his brow can't help but slightly wrinkle, and his eyes show a strange awe.
Boy, didn't you hear what Godfather asked you?
At this time, after seeing that Yi Tian heard Qin Li's words, he didn't even have any reaction on his face. He was so angry that he led several strong tattoos, waving a knife, and rushed to Yi Tian. In broad daylight, it's such a murder. It seems that you and the grand gathering should no longer exist.
Seeing this, Yi Tian smiles faintly and shakes his hand gently towards the direction of Jimmy and others. The sound. No, how is that possible?
Zhuang Cheng heard Yi Tian's voice, and his face was more incredible.
Ah!
Just one breath, the hands of Jimmy and the tattooed men holding the blade, as if they had been cut by the invisible blade, broke shoulder to shoulder, gushed blood, and gave out a shrill howl like killing a pig. You. Seeing this scene, Xin Lu looks at Yi Tian with his mouth wide open, his face full of disbelief. At the beginning, when he was running for office, he was assassinated by his rival. It was him who fought with blood and a machete to get out of the siege of more than a dozen people. But now, just a face-to-face, the knife still does not fall, Jimmy's arm was cut off. He is not an ordinary person. He is the same as Zhuangcheng.
He is a powerful mountain man. Qin Lu soon understood what was going on.
As soon as he pulled out the corner of his eye, he felt his hand at his waist. At the same time, he said in a loud voice, "Shoot me, kill him."
You want to kill me?
When Yi Tian hears the sound, he picks his eyebrows and smiles lightly. He raises his hand, and a fireball flies out of the field. He smashes into the field with a lot of sparks and flies to the little gangsters whose hands touch their waist. Without waiting for their hands to touch their guns, they become firemen one by one, struggling and howling in the field.
It's him. It's really him.
At this time, Zhuang Cheng was looking at the terrible scene. In his pupils, he was more and more frightened. At the same time, he showed a strong excitement, just like seeing the hunter of the prey. You. Xin Lu looks at Yi Tian in a dazed way, trembling all over, and even has a stream of urine between his legs. As the leader of the grand meeting, he has never seen a big scene, but this strange picture is the first time he has seen it. He feels scared to pee. On Hong Kong Island, especially in Jianhaiao, the name Qinyu is a living king of hell, which can stop children's night crying. Even on the road, there is a saying that it is better to offend the real king of hell than the living king of hell Qinyu. But today, Xin Lu really understood what is called Yama. In front of Yi Tian, they are just like tiny ants. As long as Yi Tian reaches out his hand at will, he can cross out their names from the book of life and death.
You just said you were going to break my tendons? Yi Tian looks at Xin Lu with a playful smile and a move.
He pulls a chair with his cloud camera hand. After sitting down, he looks at Xin Lu and says faintly, "Big man misunderstanding, this is all a misunderstanding. From today on, I, Xin Lu, will be your man and your dog. If you ask me to go east, I will never dare to go west. Please spare my dog's life." Xin Lu smelled the pungent smell of blood in the air. His back was chilly. He forced out a flattering smile and bowed to Yi Tian.
To be my dog? What was that all about? Do you want to bite your master?
Leaf Day pick eyebrow a smile, looking at him to play taste.
Aye.
Xin Lu looks at Yi Tian, trembles, and then flashes a fierce light in his eyes. He rushes to Hao Ji's body, takes a gun, aims at his head, and gnashes his teeth. "You garbage, you dare to provoke me to go to the big man's trouble. You are so bold, you should die."
Brother Lu. Brother Hao looks at Qin Lu in horror. He really can't believe that Qin Lu has aimed his gun at his little brother. Bang! But without waiting for Brother Hao to finish his words, Qin Li's eyes flickered and suddenly pressed the trigger, red and white flying all over the ground. Boss, I've killed him. Please give me a break. Immediately after that, Qin Yu falls to his knees and kowtows to Yi Tian, begging for mercy. At the moment of kneeling down, Qin Lu felt that his spine was broken. In the past, it was always someone kneeling in front of him and pleading for mercy. But now, it is him kneeling on the ground and pleading for mercy. Originally, kneeling down, this kind of feeling is so uncomfortable, is so humiliated. But now, in order to survive, he has nothing to care about. You want to live, don't you? Do what you just said you would do to me by yourself. Yi Tian looks at Qin Lu indifferently, and his voice is indifferent. What kind of organization is Heshingwei and what kind of person is Qin Lu? This can be seen from the words Qin Lu just wanted to deal with him. Such forces and such people will only harm more people if they stay in the world. However, this kind of thing is too cheap to kill him. The best way is to let him live as if he were dead and suffer the humiliation he imposed on others in the past. Also let him understand what is called killers. People always kill, hurt people, people always hurt. Misunderstanding, boss, it's all misunderstanding. Please forgive me. Qin Lu can no longer restrain his fear and kowtows to Yi Tian, hoping to be forgiven by Yi Tian. Since you don't want to do it yourself, I'll have to help you. When Yi Tian hears the words, he picks his eyebrows and smiles lightly. As soon as he raises his hand, 3 wind blades suddenly fly out to Qin Lu. Mr. Shuang, help me. Help me. Looking at Yi Tian's hand raised, Qin Lu turns to Zhuangqing in a hurry and cries for help, hoping that Zhuangqing can lend a helping hand. Whoa! What's weird is that Zhuangqing doesn't have any intention to stop him. Instead, he just watched Yi Tian's windblade fall on Qin Li's hands and feet and cut off his hands and feet with his wrist. From then on, he became a one-horned dragon. In the past, Qin Li did not know how many people had broken their hands and feet, and how many people had heard the shrill howl. But now, it was his turn to do it. When the terrible pain swept through his body, he immediately sent out the shrill howl like a pig. His body trembled wildly and then fainted. Heshingwei's subordinates, trembling all over, look at Yi Tian in horror, and their eyes are like looking at the god. They thought that they were the best people in the existence that others did not dare to provoke. But at this moment, watching Qin Li's hands and feet cut off by Yi Tian, they realize that they are no different from those who used to be regarded as grass and mustard-like by them. It turns out that they are no different from mole ants in the eyes of the real strong. Break one of your hands and get out of here. And at this time, Yi Tian toward them these people light swept one eye, indifferently issued the instruction. Since Heshingwei is so arrogant in Jianhao and the plaque is so big, it shows one thing: there are no good people in Heshingwei. Therefore, he wants to give these guys a heavy punishment, so that they can understand what it means to do to others what they don't want to do, so that they can understand that it is such a terrible feeling to be threatened and hurt by others. Hearing the news, Heshingwei people trembled, but no one was willing to do it. When they chop people, the knife falls on others. They don't feel pain. When they do, who is willing to accept the terrible pain? Why, are you going to let me help you as if I were helping him? Yi Tian sees this, raises eyebrow a smile, looking at these people light way. Whoa! After looking at Qin Lu who was paralyzed in the pool of blood, the Heshingwei people trembled wildly and looked at each other without any hesitation. They picked up some pieces of knives on the ground, closed their eyes and chopped down their wrists. In an instant, there was a lot of howling and one hand fell into the pool of blood. The scene was so tragic that it made people feel that this place had become a Torah. Take your dirty things and get out of here. Closely following, Leaf Day is looking at in grand meeting public, light scold away. As soon as the words fell, the howling people of Heshingwei were pardoned. They did not dare to hesitate. They picked up the broken hand from the ground in a hurry. Holding their wrists, they rushed to the door. They wanted to run to the hospital as soon as possible to connect the broken hand. As for Qin Lu, who was paralyzed on the ground, they didn't even look at him, and even a few guys stampeded on him. In the past, Qin Yu was a big man, but now he has broken both hands and feet, and he is a real loser. It's always the strong to be the boss, or has the useless man been the boss? Mr. Yi, it's really strong. So this is the real strong man. Yan Liang looked at this scene, excited all over, shaking, blood is trembling. On the one hand, he is scared, on the other hand, he is shocked. In his opinion, Heshingwei used to be a powerful and untouchable existence, which offended them. If he didn't run away, it would be a dead end. But today, Yi Genius made him understand that Heshingwei was just a little bigger mole ant in front of his real strength. But no matter how big the mole ant is, it's the result of being trampled to death. In the blink of an eye, the grand meeting was full of people. At this moment, it has become empty, leaving Zhuangqing alone. He just asked you to do it. Why didn't you do it? Why, do you recognize me? Yi Tian takes a look at Zhuangchang, and then plays with great interest. He just thought that Zhuangchang would attack Qin Lu after he asked for help, but he didn't expect that this guy didn't mean to do anything. He didn't even say a word of intercession and gave up Qin Lu completely. This makes Yi Tian feel that this Zhuang city should know that he is the Yi Tian who destroyed Tai Gate. He knows that he is invincible, so he doesn't dare to fight. Who do you recognize? At this time, Zhuangchang heard Yi Tian's words, and a strange smile suddenly appeared on his face. Looking at Yi Tian's eyes, he said slowly, "Of course, I recognize who you are." Of course I recognized you. When Yi Tian heard this, his eyebrows suddenly wrinkled. He could feel that there was a deep meaning in Zhuangchang's words. That kind of feeling is like Zhuangchang to recognize, is not rely on one's own strength, destroyed the tame and he, but deeper he. The Comer? The next second, Yi Tian's mind suddenly came up with an idea, followed by, he did not have any hesitation, quickly opened the source of heaven's eye, toward the Zhuangcheng. Tang Tang, how can I not recognize it? However, I'm afraid that no one in the whole square-inch spiritual realm can think that Dante, who has fallen and died, will appear on the Earth Star, where he has lived the second and built the sixth floor of the cave. Almost at the moment when Yi Tian opened the eyes of Yuan Tian, Zhuangcheng looked at Yi Tian, with a funny smile on his face, and said word by word. He is indeed the Comer. At the same time, Yi Tian already saw that there was a translucent spirit body in Zhuangcheng's body, which spread out silk threads and tightly bound the spirit body and the body. Moreover, the connection between the spirit body and the body was even more close than the golden eyeglasses man he saw last time in Tiangong Base. It was for this reason that when he saw Zhuangcheng, he didn't find the secret that the other party was the one who came. He just thought that he was an ordinary man from Tianji Mountain. Dante? Earth Star? The second? Square-inch spirit field? Yan Liang listened to these words with a perplexed face. He suddenly felt like a fool and could not understand anything. Yan Liang, go out and wait for me first. At this time, Yi Tian turned his head and looked at Yan Liang. Yes. Although Yan Liang was full of confusion, he didn't dare to disobey Yi Tian's words. He nodded his head in a hurry, then turned around and walked out of the grand meeting. You don't seem to be curious that I can tell you who you are. Have you met my companion at this time? Zhuangcheng looked at Yi Tian with great interest and asked slowly. You're right. I've seen one. I killed one, to be exact. Yi Tian nodded calmly, did not hide anything, directly told the truth. There is no need to hide anything in front of the real cultivator of the coming, because as long as you lie, you will be detected by the other party. So it is Zhuangcheng didn't seem to care about the death of his companion at all. After nodding faintly, he looked at Yi Tian and said, the secret hand should be on you now? Hand it in and you can leave. No matter what you have done, it has nothing to do with me. The secret hand? Yi Tian is stunned. Even if the reaction comes over, what Zhuangcheng says should be that half-immortal soldier's treacherous glove. However, what makes him feel strange is that even though he was once the emperor of Dan and knew a lot of the secrets of the past, he never heard of the secret hand. Yes, it belongs to my lord. You don't deserve it. Give it up. Otherwise, you will regret it all your life. Zhuangcheng nodded calmly, then stretched out a hand toward Yi Tian, proud and slow. That kind of tone, that kind of attitude, as if even if he knew that Yi Tian was once the famous and respected emperor of Dan in the square-inch spiritual realm,
and now he is still a monk on the 6th floor of the cave. In his eyes, it is nothing at all.
Is the secret hand the master of the comber? That's one of those big men at the source of the Dark Age?
Yi Tian's eyes suddenly changed when he heard the sound. He knew that the strange glove was extraordinary, but he did not expect that there was such a secret hidden in it.
Can I ask, how much do you come to know about this world?
Yi Tian is a little silent, then he looks at Zhuang Chang and says in a deep voice.
It's no secret. I can answer you that we have more control over the world than you think. Maybe one day, someone around you will be one of us. Zhuang Chang laughs at the words in a haughty tone. Yi Tian is creepy.
Although he knows that Zhuangcheng's words must be exaggerated, there are definitely some facts. At least, the appearance of Zhuang Chang, the descendant, was completely unexpected to him. And since there are men with gold glasses in Zhuang Chang, the number of arrivals in this world must be far beyond his expectation.
You can submit to my lord and become a scroll of us.
When darkness sweeps the earth and mystery dominates the star, you may achieve what you failed to achieve in the past in the square-inch spiritual realm. Even, my lord can help you take revenge on your enemies in the square-inch spiritual realm. At this time, Zhuang Chang continued to speak, with a kind of bewitching tone. I'll take my revenge myself.
I don't need others to do it. What's more, you've got one thing wrong. Yi Tian hears the sound and looks at Zhuang Chang with a smile. I got one thing wrong?
Zhuang Chang looks at Yi Tian perplexedly. Some can't understand the meaning of his words.
You said this is my second, but you are wrong. This is not my second, this is my first. Yi Tian looks into Zhuang Chang's eyes with a brilliant smile. When he speaks indifferently, his mind moves.
The fierce sword suddenly appears in his palm. When he stabs Zhuang Chang with a sharp sword, he says coldly, "So, I won't let you parasites destroy this place." As Yi Tian said, the comers all think that he on the earth is the second of his life, but they don't know that he in Fengkan Lingyu is the second, and he on the earth is the first, and the rebirth of Emperor Dan is just the continuation of his unfinished first life.
You are from Earth.
My lord must be very interested in you. The moment Zhuangcheng heard Yi Tian's words, his eyes suddenly appeared with extraordinary colors.
However, facing Yi Tian's sword, he didn't have any fear.
The blade of the sword swept by. With a slight move, a gorgeous flying sword suddenly appeared in his palm and blocked the fierce soldiers.
Kung!
With a sound of gold and iron crossmeng, brilliant sparks splashed, the two bodies suddenly retreat.
Good sword. It seems that you have gained a lot here.
Zhuangcheng glances at his flying sword. Seeing that there are several gaps on the edge of the sword, he looks at Yi Tian's flying sword greedily.
He even has a storage weapon and a flying sword. Yi Tian looks at Zhuangcheng with vigilance.
There are more good things in this guy than Yi Tian can imagine. All this shows that this guy is more difficult to deal with than the man with gold glasses.
However, all this will soon not belong to you,
oh, yes, including yourself. At this time, Zhuangcheng looks at Yi Tian playfully, and his cultivation chi suddenly surges. Just in the blink of an eye, the chi that he exudes suddenly transforms from the air of people on the Tianji mountain into the air of pure friars. Moreover, the cultivation realm is advancing all the way from the 4th floor of the cave, 7 floors. Finally, Yi Tian's eyes show the color of horror, looking at the Zhuangcheng in front of him, holding the hand of the fierce soldier flying sword, for the first time, shudder. He has been on the earth for a long time, and he has seen the strongest mountain people, who are just the top of the heaven. The strongest cultivator is the man with gold glasses on the 6th floor of the cave before. However, the blending degree of the body and soul is far less than that of the body, so the strength is limited. But in this town, the spirit body and the flesh body are just a little less than perfect integration.
His 7-level cave is absolutely extraordinary and not so easy to deal with.
Surrender to my lord, or die. Zhuangcheng looks at Yi Tian with a smile and says slowly.
Coincidentally, what I want to say to you is exactly the second half of what you said.
Yi Tian hears the sound, pinches the fierce soldier to fly the sword, the corner of the mouth smile is bright, light way. The 7 levels of the cave is really powerful and a little higher than him, but it doesn't mean that he must be invincible. If the other party is a little higher than himself, he will not dare to fight. Then, if he encounters the presence behind the comber in the future,
how can he face up to him without fear? The wind is coming.
At the moment when the word fell, Yi Tian's hand suddenly raised. In an instant, more than 10 wind blades suddenly attacked the town.
Don't use this pediatrics method in front of me. It's meaningless.
When Zhuangchang saw the wind blade coming, he raised his flying sword to the front with a sneer and a word of indifference. With a sudden shake, he cut off all the 10 wind blades.
The 7th floor of the cave is really good.
Leaf Decantha slightly a draw, the mind becomes highly vigilant.
Wow!
After that, the flying sword in Zhuangcheng's hand shakes slightly, and immediately turns into countless sword shadows, and cuts off towards Yi Tian.
Zheng!
Yi Tian Yuan's eye shines through, and immediately locks on the most real flying sword in the sky sword shadow. Immediately, he lifts the sword to a little bit in the sky sword shadow and stabs it gently. With a sound of golden iron, the sword shadow dissipates, and Zhuangcheng and Yi Tian step back. Although his realm is higher than mine, his mana is not as smart as mine. After this sword, Yi Tianqin feels that there are still some tiny flaws in the fusion of Zhuangcheng's spirit body and physical body. Although it does not affect Zhuangcheng's cultivation realm, it makes Zhuangcheng's magic power flexible, and there is no way to match his realm. At the same time, Zhuangcheng obviously didn't expect that he would be hit by Yi Tian so casually.
He couldn't help but be stunned.
He showed a calm smile at the corner of his mouth and said, "It's so easy to hit my sword. It seems that I've been dealing with those mountain people all this time, and I'm used to using only 70% strength.
Very good.
I haven't had a fight with the cultivator for a long time. I'll take you, the famous Emperor Dan, to practice my hand." Words fall, Zhuang City once again brazenly hand, a sword forward stab out. But this sword is no longer the shadow of the sword, but only a sword edge, but with a foot-long cold sword, fierce and incomparable toward Yi Tian's shoulder.
The 7th floor of the cave is really not built. At least, I can't show such fierce sword power now. Yi Tian is a little surprised.
He knows that once he is stabbed by the sword chi, there will be many transparent holes in his body. Without any hesitation, he uses his evasion skill and disappears in front of Zhuangcheng.
To Dunshu. Yes, it's really dandy. It's smooth enough, but you can't escape. Seeing that Yi Tian disappeared, Zhuangcheng's face didn't change at all.
With a smile of disdain, he held the flying sword tightly in his hand, and his magic power surged around. With the cold intention of killing, he flew into the ground like a rainstorm. This guy, as expected, is more difficult to deal with than the man with gold glasses.
As for those so-called sky-level masters, they don't deserve to carry shoes for him.
As Yi Tian walks through the ground, he feels the sharp sword air rolling, and his heart immediately becomes awe-inspiring. He knows that no matter how subtle his to-do-and method is, Zhuangcheng is as terrible as a rainstorm. As long as he gets close to this area, he will be stabbed by the sword air. I haven't dealt with the real cultivator for a long time, but I'm not familiar with the means. If you are an ordinary mountain person, you will be at a loss when you encounter such a picture.
You don't know what to do. You can only keep dodging. Unfortunately, Yi Tian is not an easy practitioner. He used to be Emperor Dan.
When he found that To-Doan couldn't form an effective threat to Zhuangcheng, he felt a breeze in the air, so he changed his mana directly from To-Doan to Fengdun. His body shape was consistent with the wind, and suddenly floated. When he appeared in the back of Zhuangcheng's heart, his body shape suddenly appeared, and the fierce sword in his hand stabbed the back of Zhuangcheng fiercely.
Successful no the next second, Yi Tian's face showed a happy look, but it didn't last for a few seconds, but his expression suddenly became awe-inspiring.
Zhuangcheng, at least, is the 7th floor of the cave, and he has rich experience in fighting.
How could he be so easily won by himself? Kung! Sure enough, just as Yi Tian's fierce flying sword was about to approach the village city, an invisible wall of gold and iron suddenly appeared in the void. With a dull sound of gold and iron colliding, Shang stopped the sword from the blade.
I thought that I hadn't practiced with real practitioners for a long time, and the means were unfamiliar. But now it seems that the famous Yi Dandi has also become a handyman. After that, Zhuangcheng turns around and looks at Yi Tian, with a strange smile on his mouth. Immediately, he turns his hands to the air, and the magic gas wall he set up early starts to turn, sealing Yi Tian's fierce sword. In a moment, his body moves forward like a ghost, and at the same time, he hits Yi Tian's chest.
Yi Tian wanted to dodge, but he could not avoid it.
He had no choice but to use his mana and infuse it into his chest.
He received the opponent's fierce blow. Bang!
Accompanied by a dull sound, Yi Tian's body, like a broken kite, flies upside down. Along the corner of his mouth, there is a bloodshot spilling. Although the other side's fist does not cause healing trauma to him, it also shakes his viscera. It's too long to fight with the practitioners. It's really strange. Yi Tian stood firm, raised his hand and slowly wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked at Zhuangcheng with awe-inspiring eyes and thought in his heart. In the past, no matter how strong the mountain people were, as long as the flying sword and the escaping method passed, they would be defeated. However, Zhuangcheng was obviously different. This guy was a real cultivator, and his realm was higher than himself.
He was not so easy to deal with.
Boy, I can help you steal his sword, or steal the magic power of a blow, and help you get rid of him. At this time, the voice of Glove Spirit suddenly passed through the storage ring and appeared in Yi Tian's mind.
With a bewitching tone, he said slowly, "My condition is very simple. You ask me and tell me all your secrets. I like secrets best."
It can pass through the storage ring.
Yi Tian is shocked.
You know, the storage ring is a self-contained space.
The sound inside can't be heard outside. Even Tai Sui, a monster who has lived for many years, can't penetrate the ring. It's honest. But now, the sound of the glove is penetrating the Zumi Schwazi space directly, bringing the sound into one's own ears.
This mysterious and treacherous method really deserves the title of his secret hand.
Boy, how are you thinking? Don't let me help you.
Don't cry when you lose as long as you ask me to help you and get rid of him, it's just a piece of cake.
He can't make fun of you anymore.
At this time, the glove spirit made a sound to Yi Tian again, and the bewitching in his tone became more and more intense.
Is it a secret hand or a bewitching hand?
Moreover, what puzzled Yi Tian was that Zhuangcheng said that the treacherous glove was called the secret hand, which was one of the sources of the dark turmoil. The mysterious master behind Zhuangcheng, according to reason, should have recognized the master long ago. As long as you feel the master's qi, you will fly across the mountains and rivers to get together. Yi Tian used to be in the blessed land of Qingming.
That's what he used to do.
Every time he went out to collect medicine, he would come back and tremble.
He would echo with him.
But now, looking at the appearance of the glove, it clearly does not want to return to the other side, otherwise, it will not propose to Yi Tian, saying that it will help Yi Tian get rid of the attack of Zhuang City. Yi Tian listened to the sound of glove spirit, almost speechless, and felt that it was the ultimate chatter.
He immediately responded with a cold voice, "My business, you don't need to worry about it, I naturally have a way to solve it." I don't know how to praise you. Don't ask Master Qiling. I'll go on sleeping. I'll wait for you to be fucked. I'll change my master and continue.
Glove Spirit obviously didn't expect that Yi Tian would not give himself face, so angry that he yelled at him.
Then he was silent and didn't say a word to Yi Tian.
It seemed that whether Yi Tian was alive or dead had nothing to do with him.
The secret hand is tempting you?
And at this time, Zhuangcheng such as perceived what, vigilant looking at Yi Tian, word by word.
So what? What if not? Leaf Day ponders a smile, light way. I advise you that it is very ominous.
From ancient times to the present, many people have got it, but no one can control it except my lord.
Zhuangcheng Jie sneered and said.
The secret hand was not created by the Dark Age leader behind Zhuangcheng.
It has another origin?
Hearing this, Yi Tian suddenly caught a crucial message, and then he said with a faint smile, "The Dark Age is over. I'm afraid the one behind you has suffered a lot of damage." In this way, he didn't seem to have the ability to restrain that ominous.
Besides, at the moment of the battle of life and death, don't you think it's ridiculous for you to frighten me with the ominous things in your secret hands and make me dare not use them?
As Yi Tian said, he is very clear that Zhuangcheng may not have the idea of killing himself, but he must also have the idea of taking him down. Therefore, his so-called advice is more like a bluff.
Those who humiliate my lord, die. Zhuangqing's eyes sank, and his killing opportunity appeared.
The flying sword in his hand swayed, and his mana poured. With the sharp sound of breaking the air, he suddenly attacked Yi Tian.
Moreover, the speed was a little faster than before.
He firmly locked his chi, making him unable to dodge. If you have only such means, you must be the one who died today. At the moment, Yi Tian's face is not afraid.
He snorts coldly. The fierce flying sword in his hand suddenly swings under the infusion of mana.
It suddenly brings up a whirlpool of sword light in the air, which attracts all the sword chi, and then breaks up with the fierce edge of the fierce flying sword.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
The blade of the fierce swords and the air of the swords collide with each other, and a burst of air is heard around them. Like raindrops, the air of the swords roars away in all directions, turning the hard Wangwali furniture in the grand hall into sawdust. Even the reinforced concrete dome is pierced by the chaos of sword chi, bricks and stones are flying down, dust is all over the sky. Go on.
Immediately after that, Yi Tian drinks a lot. The light in his eyes is bright.
He jumps up and rushes towards Zhuangchang.
To die. Zhuangchang drinks coldly.
Without any hesitation, he holds a flying sword and faces Yi Tian.
Shoot.
But at this time, Yi Tian's eyes suddenly show fun, and the other hand hanging around him suddenly opens and grabs at Zhuangchang. No, he wants to use the power of the secret hand to deprive me of the power of this blow. When Zhuangchang saw this, he felt a sudden chill in his heart. He could not help but stop the attack and swept back to escape.
Damn, he's playing with me.
But at the moment when Zhuangchang stood on the ground, he immediately felt that although Yi Tian's claw came out, the chi of his whole body didn't change at all. It was obvious that Yi Tian was shouting at him.
Emperor boxing.
In this moment, the chi of Yi Tian suddenly changed.
He felt like walking on the flame.
He appeared in front of Zhuangchang and hit him on the chest with a fist. This blow, fast to the extreme, but also with a terrible pressure on the soul, Zhuangchang did not have time to do any dodge. He was hit in the chest with a punch, flying backward towards the rear, mouth blood spray.
That one is in return for your one.
This punch is the interest I charge. After a successful attack, Yi Tian drinks coldly. His body is like a ghost.
He bounces up from the ground and hits Zhuangchang's chest with another powerful blow. Zhuangchang didn't dare to hesitate.
His eyes were awe-inspiring, and he blocked it.
Bang!
In a flash, along the position where the two fists contacted, there was a terrible explosion immediately. Yi Tian's wrist was shaking wildly, and there was blood trickling down the face of the fist, which was extremely fierce, and Zhuangchang also blocked the fist. His right arm was chapped, and his body retreated.
Come again!
But Yi Tian can't feel any pain, so he fiercely attacks Zhuangchang again. He abandons the flying sword and fights with him. One punch after another, his mana surging.
Every punch is over the speed of sound, with a terrible sonic boom. This guy, isn't Dante famous for alchemy? How do you come to Earth and become like an individual?
What's more, his cultivation of mental method is not the secret of Qingming Taoism. His majesty is so blazing, just like the Emperor Zhuangqing kept blocking, but his heart was more and more frightened. He felt that the situation in front of him was beyond his guess.
Boom! 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 One punch after another, Yi Tian is as tired and painful as if he didn't know anything about it.
Even if there are cracks on his right arm, he doesn't feel it. He looks like a mad tiger and keeps fighting with his power. What's more, Yi Tian didn't just punch, but also used the evasion method to the point of being unpredictable. At the moment of boxing, without waiting for any reaction from Zhuangqing, his figure had dissipated, and immediately, from another tricky angle, he launched an attack. It's hard to guard against all this. Even though the town is now on the 7th floor of the cave, there is still a feeling of being stretched out. No, it's weird with his fist. What's more strange is that when Yi Tian punches one after another, Zhuangchang suddenly finds that his body seems to be getting heavier and heavier. He not only has to fight with Yi Tian, but also has to spare part of his energy to control his body, just like an old cow pulling a heavy cart. All his attacks are aimed at the places where my spirit body and flesh body don't fit perfectly. By bombarding these areas, the degree of fit becomes lower, and even affects the areas where other spirit bodies and flesh bodies almost fit perfectly.
Immediately after that, Zhuangqing made an amazing discovery. Although Yi Tian's fists are hard and fierce, they seem to be made at will, but the placement of each fist is so accurate that it is the worst fit between his spirit and body. How does he see through this mismatch? Although Zhuangqing has already understood Yi Tian's intention, he really can't understand it. The combination between the spiritual body and the physical body is not his own internal vision. He can't see how Yi Tian found his weakness. But he didn't know that Yi Tian had the eye of heaven, which could shine through all things. From the moment when he confirmed that the other party was the one who came, Yi Tian never closed his eyes and illuminated the other party's spirit body. When he lost the flying sword fight, he changed his mind and kept looking for the places where the spirit body and the flesh body didn't fit perfectly in Zhuangqing's body. Then he attacked these places to maximize the result. Or, in other words, let the long dike of Zhuangqing be destroyed by seemingly insignificant ant colonies. Get out of here! Almost at the moment when Zhuangqing finds out why Yi Tian suddenly changed his method and chose to fight in the flesh, Yi Tian's mana surges, and the golden flame of the original spirit fire in the elixir field flickers, emitting unparalleled terrible power and infusing Yi Tian's right fist. Boom! Followed by, with the thunderbolt-like terrible sound, Yi Tian this punch, hit heavily in the position of Zhuang City Waist Eye. Click! 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 There was no way to stop this terrible blow. When it fell, Zhuangqing suddenly felt that there was a terrible crack sound coming from his body. The place where the sound broke out was exactly the riveting place where the spirit body and the body of Zhuangqing merged. It's over. Spirit and flesh separated when the terrible voice came to his ears. A thought suddenly appeared in Zhuangqing's heart. Without time to do anything, he felt that his body suddenly became light, as if he had got rid of the mire, and became extremely light. What's more strange is that he saw that with this terrible blow, he saw the back of his body, and it was getting farther and farther away. At this moment, if there is an outsider here, surely you can see that behind Zhuangqing, a milky white figure with the same shape as Zhuangqing suddenly flies out. That picture, it can be said that it is extremely treacherous. It seems that there is a translucent himself running out of Zhuangqing's body. The spirit body leaves the skeleton. The moment Zhuangqing saw the back of the body, he immediately said that there was no good way. Without any hesitation, he struggled hard and effected the silk-like connection between the spirit body and the body, so he wanted to return the spirit body to the body. You know, before the cultivation broke through the Yuanying realm, the spiritual bodies of monks were extremely weak. Even a little bit of wind would damage them, direct sunlight, and even fire. Zhuangqing's cultivation is just a golden elixir realm, and his spirit is extremely weak. Once Yi Tian takes this opportunity to attack him, he will surely die out. But just at this time, Yi Tian saw the spirit body of Zhuang City flying out of the body. Without any hesitation, he twisted his body and hit the spirit body of Zhuang City heavily to break it. Xinyan, attack! Although it was far away from each other, the spirit of Zhuangqing felt that at this moment, it was like thousands of knives had cut a small hole in his whole body. He made the spirit shiver. At the same time, his eyes suddenly showed the color of determination, and the spirit's eyes suddenly had light emitting, and followed a strange force, along the body skeleton, to the leaf day attack. The means of divine attack? As soon as that chi approached, Yi Tian immediately felt dizzy in his brain and uncontrollable in his body. Although the spirit body is weak, it is formed by the condensation of human spirits. Although it can't use magic power, it can attack enemies with divine ideas. It is a weak spirit body and one of the few means to protect life. If you are a friar of leisure, you may be doomed in an instant when you encounter such an attack. Unfortunately, what you encounter in Zhuangqing is not a friar of leisure, but Yi Tian. In the second after the shock, Yi Tian turns to Sua Wangwen and thinks about the sun in his mind. In a flash, along the sea of knowledge of Yi Tian, a bright sun suddenly rises, emitting limitless light and heat. Wisps of brilliance illuminate Yi Tian's sea of knowledge, making it bright as if it were a sea of fire formed by a flame. What do you practice? How can there be a big day in your mind? Almost at the same time, Zhuangqing's idea had entered Yi Tian's sea awareness, but the spirit consciousness immediately felt that it was like rushing into a furnace of flame, but less than half a breath, he felt that the idea of Yi Tian's awareness was just like being ignited by the flame, and a terrible fire suddenly swept away, which made him feel miserable. Without any hesitation, Zhuangqing immediately withdrew his mind and wanted to submerge into the spirit body. But just at the moment of the return of the divine idea, a scene that made Zhuangqing feel even more terrible appeared. After his divine idea had turned around in Yi Tian's sea of knowledge, it turned into a bright burning flame. At the moment of the return of the human body, the flame touched its spirit and immediately fell into the oil pan like a spark. Ah! In the blink of an eye, a layer of dark red flames appeared around Zhuangqing's milky white spirit body. The burning pain made him raise his head and howl wildly. Instead of paying attention to the connection between the spirit body and the body, he fell to the ground and rolled wildly, trying to use this method to extinguish the flame on the surface of the spirit body. It's a pity that the spirit body is invisible, but the fire of the mind, which has taken a circle from Yi Tianji's sea, is turbulent and invisible. No matter how hard Zhuangqing struggles, he can't extinguish it. Sua Wanguan's idea seems to restrain the exploration of spirit body and mind. Yi Tian looks at the bleak appearance of Zhuangqing. His eyes can't help changing slightly. He discovers a secret that he never found in the past. Ah, please, spare me. I'm willing to listen to you. I'm willing to tell you everything. Please, let me go. Just a short moment, Zhuangqing can't bear it. He howls and asks for mercy from Yi Tian. The burning of the spirit body is more terrible than the burning of the flesh body. Because the burning of the flesh body is so painful that the body can faint. But the burning of the spirit body is directly burned on the spirit. Even if it is so painful, the more painful it will be, the more sober it will be. Unless the performer extinguishes the fire, the person with profound cultivation can help, or the terrible fire will completely destroy the spirit body, burned to nothing. Otherwise, the fire of spirit body will not be extinguished. Sorry, I'm not interested in what you said. But it's a pity that Yi Tian has no curiosity about his words. He just glances at them and says indifferently. The last time he dealt with the man with gold glasses, he had made up his mind to manage his curiosity and never act rashly. Many times, knowing too many secrets will not help to improve his cultivation, but will harm himself. In particular, those who stand behind Zhuangqing dominate the existence of terror in the Dark Age and provoke this kind of people, that is, they seek death. As for Zhuangqing, let him live and die. The prisoners of these days, whether they were in the past or in the present, are absolutely full of evil. Even if they die 100 times, they are more than enough. My lord is... Seeing this, Zhuangqing cried out indignantly and wanted to tell the name of the Dark Age master behind him. Click. 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 But almost at the moment of Zhuangqing's words, cracks suddenly broke out along his body, followed by his miserable and ferocious spirit face. At this moment, his eyes also lost their smart luster, like a sculpture, but along the inside of his spirit body, there was something terrible happening. Change, to break out the power of shock. The one behind Zhuangqing didn't want to reveal his name, so he stopped him. Yi Tian saw this, a shiver in his heart, without any hesitation, immediately flew back. Boom! Almost at the moment when Yi Tian's body retreated to the door, the change in the spirit body of Zhuang City suddenly reached the critical point. A bright color twinkled, and immediately burst out, and the terrible airwaves roared in all directions. The smell, like the flood burst the dike, was out of control. When it touched the grand building, it was like a knife cutting tofu. It was broken into two parts, then collapsed, and the debris was flying. Even Yi Tian, under the severe impact, all fell backward and rose up. After nearly a few meters, he could be regarded as standing firm. But even so, his mouth still spilled a touch of blood. When he looked at the grand meeting, he found that the walls on all sides of the grand meeting had been overturned by the terrible air. The dome collapsed and fell to the ground. The thick smoke and dust slowly formed a mushroom cloud in mid-air. There is no difference between this terrible voice and bomb explosion. This what's going on? Did you blow up the armory at the party? The house of Heshinghui was bombed. Am I not dreaming? Not only Yan Liang, but also the residents living around the event, when they thought that the earthquake was coming because of the terrible tremor and roar, walked out of the house and saw that the event had turned into a ruin. they were also full of disbelief and murmuring. What's more, they were all rubbing their eyes crazily to prove that he had just told a lie in his heart. This Master Yi, what happened just now? Yan Liang looked at the terrible picture in front of him in panic, and his body couldn't help shivering. At that moment, he felt that the ground under his feet was shaking wildly. If there was no smoke in the air, he almost thought that someone was lighting a big bomb in the building of the grand meeting. Looking at the blood in the corner of Yi Tian's mouth, an idea suddenly appeared in Yan Liang's mind. This frightening scene is not a bomb at all, but the result of Yi Tian's fighting with people. However, how terrible skill and strength should be to make such a terrible vision. Let's go. After scanning more and more people around, Yi Tian looks at Yan Liang and says in a deep voice. Yan Liang didn't dare to hesitate. He looked at Yi Tian respectfully, nodded and took him to a quiet place. Although they left, the news of the event and the explosion still swept the whole Hong Kong island like a storm. Heshinghui, the largest prefix on Hong Kong island, especially the old nest in Jianhao, is like a native emperor. For people with other prefixes on Hong Kong island, this place is an absolute forbidden area. For people living there, it is a huge mountain on their head. Over the years, countless bigwigs and local residents living in Jianhao have tried to blow up this forbidden area and mountain. But unfortunately, although there are not a few experimenters, they have been here for more than 200 years. But now, in the eyes of all people, such as forbidden areas and towering mountains, the existence of terror has turned into a piece of white land. Such a picture, if not seen with one's own eyes, no one really dares to believe that this scene will be true. Mr. Yi, what happened just now with the grand meeting? At the same time, Yan Liang with Yi Tian out of the distance, this just respectfully looking at him, trembling voice. It's not me, but it has something to do with me. Yi Tian shook his head and nodded again. It's true that the movement just happened was beyond his imagination, but his cultivation can't do it for the time being, so he won't take these things that he didn't do and put gold on his face. However, the collapse of Zhuangqing's spirit body is really related to him. It's just that he didn't expect that the master of the dark age behind Zhuangqing should be so cruel and aware of Zhuangqing. If the city wants to name him, it will crack. However, what puzzled Yi Tian was that he did not know whether what the master of the dark age had just done was the punishment given because of his anger in Zhuangqing's betrayal to reveal the truth, or he did not want to let him know the truth, so he chose to kill him. However, what Yi Tian knows is that the other party did not appear at all, and he did not feel any qi, as if he was crossing mountains and rivers directly, so he turned the spirit of Zhuangqing into a terrorist bomb, which is not what he can resist now. So, all this made him even more glad that he didn't ask the man with gold glasses because of curiosity and asked him to say that the master of the dark age obeyed. I'm afraid that as soon as he recited each other's name, he would be inspired by each other's heart. In that case, he will really get into big trouble. It's really you, it's too strong. However, when Yan Liang heard what Yi Tian actually said, he thought that Yi Tian was modest and that he had done all this. Heshinghui has been destroyed by me. Next, there are no leaders. You should no longer pay attention to you. You can treat your sister with peace of mind. After he is well, if you want to go to Haojiang, you can go to Jinsha Grand Casino to find old gambling king Yi. I will say hello to him and give you a job. If you want to stay on Hong Kong Island, you can go to Jai's house and they will also give you a decent job. Yi Tian looks at Yan Liang's adoring eyes and knows that even if he explains the event again, it has nothing to do with him and has no meaning. This guy still won't believe it, so he doesn't say anything more. Instead, he shakes his head with a bitter smile and looks at him. After helping Yan Liang, his affairs on Hong Kong Island are over. It's time to go to Haojiang to find Ning Shui, and then go back to Nanhai. Master Yi, aye. Hearing this, Yan Liang looked at Yi Tian admiringly. After shaking for a long time, he suddenly knelt down on the ground and kowtowed to Yi Tian 3 times. He said, "Can I worship you as a teacher? I want to learn Kung Fu with you and become as powerful as you." Become as powerful as me? And then, what do you do? The Leaf Day hears a sound, pick eyebrow a smile, looking at Yan Liang to smile away. Yi Tian is not surprised by this. After all, Yan Liang has suffered a lot. Now he is so powerful that even in Yan Liang's opinion, the unattainable events and grand gatherings can be easily destroyed. Yan Liang can't help but feel shocked.
Then he has the idea to worship him and become as powerful as him.
I want to protect Pop. What's more, I hope I can become different.
No matter what dangers and things Pop encounters in the future, I will no longer be the useless brother who has no way but to accompany her in a hurry. Yen Liang kowtowed, and then said what he thought, but the more he said, the more passionate and smooth his attitude was. Finally, his cheeks were red, and his eyes were full of hope looking at Tian.
This boy is really affectionate and righteous. No matter what he does, it's for Poo-Poo. Tian listened to Yen Liang's words and nodded slightly.
Although he is not an old-fashioned gentleman, what he wants the other party to do after taking in the disciples is to eliminate the tyrant and the good, punish the strong and eliminate the evil, but the disciples he wants to take in can't just hold a person who can make the cultivation strong and then be powerful. Yen Liang's words are very simple, just want to protect Poo-Poo, don't want to be a useless brother. This reason may not sound tall enough, but it makes Tian feel that Yen Liang can be his apprentice more than 10,000 words.
Here is a Huangji pill, a DG pill, and a mental cultivation method.
After taking Huangji pill, you can cut bones and wash marrow, set foot on the road of cultivation, and then practice according to the mental cultivation method, and you can gradually become strong.
After Poo-Poo's illness is over, you can take her to Nanhai to find me. Tian smiles and nods.
Then he takes out 2 pills from the storage ring and gives them to Yen Liang. Then he reads the Qingming formula to him.
Master Yi, do you agree to let me worship you as my teacher? Yen Liang hears the sound and nods repeatedly.
After receiving the things from Tian, he just wakes up with joy in his eyes.
Nonsense, I don't accept you as an apprentice. What can I do for you with these things? Tian smiles bitterly and shakes his head. This apprentice really lacks a tendon in his head. Thank you, master. Thank you.
Yen Liang will go through fire and water for you in the future. Yen Liang was overjoyed when he heard the speech.
He could not help but kowtow to Tian. When he lowered his head, tears even ran down the corner of his eyes. If it wasn't for Tian, he was still stealing in the street now.
Even if he was lucky that he wasn't caught, he would be used by Hushing Club to help them scum to commit crimes and live a life of licking blood. Sooner or later, he would return the scum. At that time, Yen Poo-Poo's illness cannot be treated, waiting for her, or there is a kind-hearted person to help, funded to help her, but the probability is very small. The biggest possibility is to quietly die in the hospital bed, without a person around.
Our school doesn't pay attention to the etiquette of kneeling, respect, just put it in the heart.
Tian's hand gently raised, and the air current rippled and lifted Yen Liang up from the ground.
Yes.
Without thinking, Yen Liang nodded. His respect for Tian is really from the bottom of his heart. Well, go back to take care of Poo-Poo.
I'm going to leave.
When she gets well, remember to take her to Nanhai to find me.
Of course, I won't force anyone to be in trouble.
If your brother and sister don't want to leave Hong Kong Island, it doesn't matter.
You and I have the best fate. Tian looked at Yen Liangru's respectful manner towards his teacher, gave a bitter smile, and then said.
As a person, he stresses the word fate when he comes into contact with others.
If fate comes, he will get together. If fate ends, he will disperse.
If fate comes and fate goes, he will get together and disperse.
He will not be forced to do so. I will take Poo-Poo to the South China Sea. Yen Liang was resolute and sincere. Well, I'll wait for you in Nanhai. Go back quickly.
I'll go first. Tian nodded with a smile and looked around. After he was sure that there was no one around him, his mind moved, and the fierce sword suddenly appeared. Then he stood up against the sword and plunged into the vast clouds, and disappeared.
You royal sword flying did I worship an immortal master?
Yen Liang looks at the scene of Tian's sudden departure from the imperial sword. His whole body is in a daze. His scalp feels numb. He just feels as if suddenly, strangely, the fantastic world is intertwined with his own life. The flying sword is very fast.
The distance between Hong Kong Island and Haojiang is not far.
After a while, Tian arrives at the top of He Family Manor.
Mr. Yi, you are.
When Tian appeared in front of old gambling king He from the sky, he was dull. He has been running a gambling house all his life. He has experienced numerous storms.
He was also used by King Ningzong in the past.
He knows the strangeness of the people on the mountain like the palm of his hand. But even so, a big living man suddenly fell from the sky, appeared in front of him, still can't help but let him feel shocked. I can fly with my sword.
Hong Kong Island is very close to Haojiang River. I don't want to fly anymore. It's faster. Yi Tian explained faintly, and glanced around. He didn't see Ning Shui, Yu Chan, and Yu Qing. He wondered, what about the three of them? Miss Ning took them out shopping. I sent someone to follow them. Mr. Yi can rest assured that my people follow them in Haojiang. No one dares to do anything to them.
I'll call my people immediately and tell them that Mr. Yi is back. Old Gambling King he heard the words of Imperial Sword, but his face was not less shocked. Instead, he became more and more intense, and then said respectfully.
Then don't talk to them. Let them have a good time. Yi Tian waved his hand with a smile. Ning Shui's nothing more than that.
It's not good that Cicada and Green are called back by themselves.
I'll listen to Mr. Yi.
Please come inside. He old gambler in front of Yi Tian, respectful like a pupil in front of the teacher, obedient, even the atmosphere dare not a mouthful.
Mr. He, you don't have to be so polite.
I don't care about these people who are polite. Yi Tian looks at the old Gambling King he looks like, can't help but smile bitterly and shake his head repeatedly, but see old Gambling King he doesn't have any meaning to change, know that it's useless, can only let it go, follow old Gambling King he into the manor, wait for Ning Shui and others to come back. Time passed quickly, a moment later, 3 or 4 hours later, the sun was to the west, but Ning Shui still didn't come back. This makes Yi Tian's eyebrows wrinkle slightly, and the cicada is fond of playing. It's understandable, but Ning Shui is not someone who doesn't know the wait. She can't have been out for such a long time without even a message. Ding ling ling at this time, his old gambler's mobile phone suddenly rang. When he got through, his face immediately became ugly and embarrassed.
Is something wrong with Ning Shui?
Seeing this, Yi Tian immediately looks at old Gambling King he and asks in a deep voice.
Miss Ning, they are in a bit of trouble. They are entangled, so they haven't come back yet.
Old gambler he nodded, his face full of embarrassment and guilt. He has just made a bold statement to Yi Tian, saying that he has sent people to follow Ning Shui and Cicada. In Haojiang, no one dares to do anything to Ning Shui, but it's only a few hours since their words, and the three of them are in trouble.
Entangled? Who is it?
Yi Tian frowned and looked at the old Gambling King he inquired.
I'm entangled by LV Ming of the LV family. Don't worry, Mr. Yi.
I'll call LV he right away and ask him to discipline his useless grandson, apologize to Miss Ning and send him back. He old Gambling King hears the sound, hastily way, then took out the handset, must dial the telephone.
Lu Ming?
Yi Tian heard the name, his eyes suddenly cold, light way, don't so trouble, take me to them, I want to see, Haojiang LV family, is really like the legend of so arrogant. Previously, when he searched for the target of Qin Luotian's pursuit on the internet, he saw the news that in the pursuit of Qin Luotian, in addition to Li Fan Yuan of the Li family in Yanjing, there was Lu Ming of the LV family in Haojiang. Before that, Li Fan Yuan bumped into his head. Because the Haojiang River was too far away, Lu Ming didn't find a chance to do it. Later, he established a relationship with Qin Luotian, so he didn't care about these bedbugs. But now, since Lu Ming hit the muzzle of the gun, he would not be polite.
Yes.
Hearing this, he hesitated. Seeing Yi Tian's resolute attitude, he put his mobile phone into his pocket and rushed out with Yi Tian.
After a while, Yi Tian and He Laowan came to a pedestrian street.
Haojiang is originally a tourist attraction. Although it's already dusk, the streets are still full of tourists. However, at this moment, this pedestrian street is particularly busy, with a sea of people. In addition to some reporters with long guns and short guns shooting, many tourists also form a circle, holding their mobile phones, as if they were shooting something.
No shooting. He's cheating. You can't listen to them. Sister Ning is not like that.
At this time, along the depth of the crowd, came the cicada angry roar. Little girl, you have the courage to do something like that. Why don't you have the courage to let others say it? Tut tut, you're so young, but you're so mean. What's wrong with you, but you have to recognize Mr. Chi? Don't you feel ashamed of yourself? As soon as the cicada's voice fell, a young man's voice rang out in the crowd. He retorted bitterly, and then yelled to the people around him, "Everyone, come and take photos, and send them to the internet, so that we can broaden our horizons and understand what is Chi is woman." It is obvious that the young man who made this sound should be Lu Ming of the LV family. What is Lord Chi? When Yi Tian heard this, he turned to look at the old gambling king and asked in a deep voice. He felt that Lord Chi was not a good word. What Hong Kong Island and Haojiang said about Chi Ye is the godfather of the mainland. Originally, it didn't mean much, but now, it's changed. The old gambling king hears the sound, hastily respectfully toward the Leaf Day explanation way. In this way, the person who just spoke was scolding Ning Shui for being a little three who was taken care of by others. When Yi Tian heard this, his eyes suddenly cooled down. You just recognized Chi Ye, your whole family recognized Chi Ye, bully Sister Ning, I'll kill you. At this time, the cicada's angry roar rang out from the crowd, followed by the skin and flesh, and the cry of pain. Oh, little girl, she's not very old, and she's good at it. You've done something shameful, but no one will tell you. Do you think that beating people can stop you? The more violent you are, the more guilty you are. Then, Lu Ming's voice rang out again, accusing again and again. I advise you to mind your own mouth. I don't care who you are, but if you slander me again, I will be rude to you. At this time, the temper has always been very good. Ning Shui also finally can't help, word by word out. Come on, let me see. How are you going to be rude to me? Lu Ming, just as Yi Tian saw on the internet, is a very thick-skinned and cheap playboy. After hearing Ning Shui's words, instead of being afraid, he jumps up and down, and the clamor becomes more arrogant. I want to see people being rude to you, don't I? Don't look for others. Since you are a man, come to me. Hearing this, Yi Tian's eyes are awe-inspiring. His eyes pass the murderer. He strides forward, reaches out his hand to push away the crowd, and walks to Ning Shui and Yu Chan. Then he looks at the young man in front of them, who looks like a dog in a white suit, with a greasy head and a pair of gold glasses. He says faintly, What are you? How dare you stir up my affairs with Lu Ming? Seeing Yi Tian, Lu Ming glanced up and down, disdaining the way. Master. When the cicada saw Yi Tian, he was so angry that his face turned red. He immediately showed his joy and held Yi Tian's hand tightly. He said happily, Master is here, don't be afraid. Hearing the sound, Yi Tian nodded to the cicada with a smile and said slowly. Closely followed, he toward rather Snow saw an tiny nod. When Ning Shui sees Yi Tian, she immediately smiles on her face, which was a little pale because of anger, and her heart, which was a little uneasy because of anger and suffocation, suddenly becomes peaceful. I don't know why, Yi Tian's sudden appearance makes her feel that no matter how much trouble she encounters, even if the sky collapses, it's nothing. It turns out that you are the master of this little girl. No wonder you are so angry. I tell you that if your apprentice hurt my subordinates, you should immediately apologize to me. Otherwise, I will clean up with your master together. Listening to Yi Tian's words, LV Ming immediately sneered and raised his head, and said arrogantly, What just happened? Yi Tian didn't even look at LV Ming. Instead, he looked at the cicada and said, We were just strolling here. My mother was taking pictures of Sister Ning and me. This guy suddenly rushed out and asked Sister Ning for a phone call. He also said that he wanted to take Sister Ning to some interesting places in Haojiang. Sister Ning ignored him, and this guy pestered us. Grandfather, he sent people to protect us to stop us. But he not only didn't listen, but also did it, and he said, I'm sorry, she said a lot of ugly words and scolded Sister Ning. Scolding Sister Ning is? Cicada do small mouth, angry looking at LV Ming, Lao Ti Tian said the cause and effect, but at the end of the words, Chowning Snow looked, but no longer say. Although the little girl didn't finish her words, according to what she just heard, Yi Tian also knows that LV Ming must be a dog who can't spit out ivory. Seeing that master he sent someone to protect Ning Shui, she thinks that Ning Shui's a little three who was taken care of by Master He or his family.
What's the matter with these people?
After looking at LV Ming indifferently, Yi Tian looks around at the reporters, at the cicada and says,
"It's all called by this smelly guy.
He said that he wanted to expose Sister Ning, so that we can have a good look at the aesthetics of the He family."
The cicada's face is full of anger, and he says,
"I see this Lu Ming, doing this kind of thing, is really a set of." The more Yi Tian listened to these words, the more indifferent he was. If they failed to chat up, they slandered the girl's reputation, and even called reporters for so-called exposure. It can be imagined that if the photos taken by these reporters were spread, coupled with those indecent contents, Ning Shui's reputation would be greatly damaged.
"Boy, are you deaf? Can't you hear me? Apologize to me immediately, otherwise, jia jia."
Lu Ming listened to the cicada's words. Not only did he have no shame, but he was full of pride, grinning and threatening.
"Pop."
But when he didn't wait for his laughter to fall, he just felt that it was dark in front of his eyes, followed by the hot pain of his cheeks, accompanied by the buzzing of his ears. As soon as he was light, he flew up from the ground, and then flew down to the ground with a plop.
Poof. Not only that, after landing, Lu Ming felt the blood in his mouth.
He opened his mouth, and the blood mixed with half of his face's teeth, all of them gushed out.
Hiss.
This bloody scene let the onlookers involuntarily took a big breath of cold air. The body can't help but start shaking, and they look at Yi Tian's eyes one by one, is full of shock.
Who is Lu Ming? He is the eldest son of the Lu family in Haojiang.
He is the successor of the third generation. In Haojiang, even if he walks horizontally like a crab, he never dares to offend him. But now, Yi Tian slaps the Grand LV family and makes them fly upside down, spitting blood and even flying teeth. This arrogant attitude can't help but let the people around drop their chin all over the ground.
Don't you want me to apologize? This is my attitude of apology. How about it? Are you satisfied? Yi Tian looked at LV Ming condescending, word by word, light way.
Boy, you make, find, death. Lu Ming covered his fiery mouth and looked at the teeth on the floor.
He was very angry and scolded. It seems that you are not satisfied with my apologizing attitude.
Yi Tian smiles indifferently, and immediately strides towards Lu Ming, who falls to the ground.
Smelly boy, I think you are tired of living. Dare to hurt Mingxiao, I can't let you see the sun tomorrow. Seeing Yi Tian's action, LV Ming's bodyguards wake up and threaten Yi Tian coldly.
At the same time, they trot to him to push him to the ground, full of old fists, and then give LV Ming a severe humiliation to repay his revenge. Seeing the bodyguards, who are all over 1.85 meters tall and full of fierce muscles, all the onlookers feel that even if Yi Tian's hand just revealed shows that he is very good at fighting, I'm afraid he will be put on the ground by these security guards and beaten without human form.
Bang! 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 But the next second, a scene that surprised everyone appeared. When those big bodyguards approached, Yi Tian was like a fly swatter.
With an understatement, a bodyguard fell to the ground, spitting blood, or holding his chest, or his arms and thighs, howling like a pig on the ground. 7 or 8 bodyguards, not even 5 seconds, were put on the ground by Yi Tianjin, and only howled.
Who is this guy?
Why are you so skilled? Even the so-called special forces can't do this, can they? This scene let those reporters and onlookers around directly see silly eyes. If not for the ear to hear, the howling sound is extremely real, plus Lu Ming's mouth and nose spitting blood, not like special effects. They almost doubt that this is someone shooting kung fu movies in the street. You. Lu Ming, shrinking on the ground, looks at Yi Tian in panic. His body can't help shivering. His bodyguards are all mercenary masters who are hired back from all over the world with high salaries. Many of them have been to the battlefield and experienced the Battle of Gesha. They have many lives on their hands. They are absolutely the masters among the masters. They can fight 5 or 6 at one time. But now, in front of Yi Tian, these people, one by one, become as weak as children. They are just face-to-face kung fu. They don't even have the power to fight, so they are all put on the ground by Yi Tian. Such a terrible picture, how can he not feel scared? Bang! But the second word you just came out, Yi Tian had already come to Lu Ming. Immediately, his foot suddenly raised and heavily trampled on the half of his face with his teeth intact. He stuffed his unfinished words back into his stomach. Poof! As soon as he stepped on the foot, Lu Ming felt that the bones on half of his face were as crisp as they were, and the terrible click sound in his ears was incessant. At the same time, his mouth opened, and there was a mouthful of blood. In a moment, the back teeth on half of his mouth were all spurting out with blood foam. This scene, directly around the people to see silly. No one thought that after Yi Tian gang slapped Lu Ming, he would give him another foot, and still step on his face with his feet. Such a cruel method is that it doesn't pay attention to the Grand LV family at all.
How's it going? Are you satisfied with my apology now? Yi Tian looked at Lu Ming with indifference, and didn't mean to let him go.
He slowly pressed the sole of his foot and crushed Lu Ming's face.
Manny please, let me go.
All the teeth on both sides were knocked off.
It was painful and penetrating.
Lu Ming, a young man who was well cared for and treated, usually felt severe pain when he had a small cut on his finger, not to mention the terrible pain of all the teeth being knocked off now.
Without any hesitation, he immediately counseled him.
He trembled wildly and begged to Yi Tian for help. I can spare myself.
Are you satisfied? Hearing this, Yi Tian looked down at LV Ming and said, I'm sorry. You're satisfied, but I'm not satisfied now.
It's your turn to apologize.
Schwa.
A language falls, leaped a feet toward Lu Ming's head, lightly a pick, then picked him up from the ground, stood up straight body.
Bang! Immediately after that, Yi Tian's feet flashed out and kicked LV Ming's knees. With two crisp sounds of click and click, LV Ming's knees softened and immediately fell to his knees.
All the people are silent, looking at this scene in horror, only feel that at this moment, Yi Tian, just like a devil out of the abyss. It's not too much to kill, but Yi Tian is obviously planning to let LV Ming die instead of living.
Don't you like taking pictures?
Yi Tian looked at this scene, turned to scan those reporters and onlookers, and said faintly, now, why don't you continue to shoot?
Keep shooting?
One word falls, the reporter of those lacy tabloid around, involuntarily shiver all over, don't know Yi Tian is saying irony, or the truth, the long gun short cannon in the hand, also don't know should continue to hold good, or put down good.
If you don't want to shoot, go away.
When Yi Tian saw this, his eyes were bright, and a blade of wind suddenly flew out and landed on the SLR camera with a telephoto in the hands of a reporter recently. Click in a flash, the SLR camera with long focus was cut in half, then fell from the reporter's hand and fell to the ground with a bang.
Shoot, we shoot.
This strange scene scared those journalists who are used to eating human blood steamed bread into cold air on their backs. Although they can't understand how Yi Tian did it, there is no doubt that since Yi Tian can cut the SLR camera in half, their neck, which is far less hard than the SLR camera, can't stand the blow.
Come on, what's the matter with all this?
Let's make it clear word by word, otherwise. Seeing that people hold up their cameras and mobile phones, Yi Tian looks down at LV Ming. His eyes are bright and his feet are very flexible.
He turns one of LV Ming's arms over on the ground and immediately steps down heavily. Click. Click. Click.
Accompanied by a series of terrible crisp sounds, Lu Ming's whole hand was crushed, blood and flesh blurred, and his white skeleton was very conspicuous.
Ah!
Even though Lu Ming had suffered countless pains before, at this moment, the terrible pain of his fingers and palms still made him raise his head and make a terrible howl like killing a pig.
Come on, in front of everyone, I'll ask and you'll answer, and make everything clear.
Otherwise, your head will be the same as your hands. Yi Tian looked at LV Ming indifferently, as if he didn't hear his howl, and continued to light the way.
I said everything. LV Ming trembles and nods.
At this moment, under the terrible threat of Yi Tian, he dares to hide half a word.
Come on, what's your relationship with this lady? Yi Tian hears speech, looking at him, light inquiry asks away. I don't know her. LV Ming looks at Yi Tian in horror, and then at Ning Shui, trembling.
At this moment, he even regretted his intestines. If he had known that provoking Ning Shui would bring him such a terrible disaster, then even if he lent him 10 more courage, he would never dare to talk to Ning Shui.
No?
Since I don't know her, why do you say that she recognized others as Lord Qi? Yi Tian's eyes are as bright as a knife. He stares at LV Ming coldly and shouts. When I saw her, I thought she was very beautiful. She was my favorite type. I wanted to hook up with her, but I didn't expect she didn't give me any face. Later, his subordinates came out to stop me. I was upset, so I pestered her all the time. Then she said that she recognized him as Lord Qi, and called several reporters she knew to make them shoot. LV Ming Duo shivered and told the whole story. Listening to his words, the reporters immediately shrunk and lowered their heads. The cameras in their hands were trembling. Some big prostitutes, is the truth what he said? Yi Tian smell speech toward that a few reporters light swept an eye way. I'm sorry. We were cheated by Lu Ming too. I don't know the truth. Lu Ming, who gave us a lot of money, specially asked us to take pictures of him and some girls together, and then hyped the lace to discredit those girls, or used it to coerce them and make them annoyed. We know we are wrong. Please forgive us. We swear that we will never dare again. One word fell, the reporters did not have any hesitation, hurriedly put on a kneel to the ground, toward Yi Tian repeatedly kowtow, told the truth, but also pointed to the sky, swear. The truth turns out to be like this. This Lu Ming is really not a thing. If a girl refuses him, he will deliberately ruin his reputation. What a beast he is. No, to say he is a beast is to praise him. He is a piece of rubbish. This rubbish almost cheated us. We thought that the young girl didn't do good deeds and made trouble for a long time. It turned out that this son of a bitch couldn't pursue her and deliberately wiped the black girl. It's really rubbish. Lu Ming's words fell, and when people around him looked at the expressions of the reporters nearby, how could they not know that what Lu Ming had just said was the truth of the whole thing? He was immediately furious and denounced. Rubbish! Some indignant young girl spat heavily at Lu Ming, who was kneeling on the ground. Lu Ming's behavior is really too despicable. Because he can't pursue it, he goes to make rumors and discredit others, which almost destroys a girl's reputation. Such rubbish, let alone being beaten by Yi Tian, can't get rid of even if it's broken. You garbage reporters are not good things. If you want to return them to reporters, the real society will not dare to report them. They will help the rich to help tyranny and ruin the reputation of other girls. What kind of reporter is a group of prostitutes who only have money in their eyes? Rubbish. Not only Lu Ming, but also the journalists have become the targets of criticism, and they have been denounced by the people who have been watching before. Compared with Lu Ming, these reporters who confuse black and white, distinguish right from wrong, and only have money in their eyes are more exasperating. Journalists, originally a sacred profession, report the truth of society, look for the dark side that people can't see, and uphold justice. But now, these guys bow to money one after another, and become tools in the hands of rich people, even to discredit a young girl's reputation regardless of right and wrong. Such journalists, not to mention, don't deserve to be journalists, even if they are human beings. Not enough. I'm sorry, we know it's wrong. A group of reporters, listening to the scolding around, kowtow to Yi Tian in horror, and pray for his forgiveness. What have you done wrong to me? So far, don't you know who to apologize to? Yi Tian looks at these reporters and says indifferently. I'm sorry, miss. We know we're wrong. Please forgive us. We'd like to publish an apology to express our apology to you. Please spare us. We really know we are wrong. A group of reporters, this just like a dream, quickly turn around, toward Ning Shui. Crazy kowtow more than, hope to get her forgiveness. At the beginning, they received a phone call from Lu Ming. They thought each other was a little girl who was easy to handle, just like those girls who were calculated by Lu Ming in the past. But I didn't expect that this one, who was provoked, was an ant who was completely covered by people, and it was the kind of Tianzio. If they knew that would be the case, even if the money Lu Ming gave them increased 10 times, they would not take the job. I don't need any apologies from you. Those who are clear will be clear. Ning Shui looks at Yi Tian, then looks up at those reporters, light way. She didn't argue too much from the beginning to the end. The reason is very simple, that is, she knows that she is blue and white. Moreover, she doesn't care about outsiders' opinions, as long as Tian knows what the truth is.
Thank you, thank you.
Those reporters heard, one by one immediately full of ecstatic color, Ning Shui repeatedly thanks, and then eyes intersection, ready to leave.
She doesn't care if you apologize or not, but did I let you go? Tian sees this, the vision is a cold, light way. We really know we are wrong. Please forgive us. Hearing the news, a group of reporters shivered and looked at Tian, shivering, hoping to be forgiven. You want me to spare you, don't you?
Hearing this, Tian picked his eyebrows, looked at the reporters and said faintly, the method is very simple.
Which hand did you take the photo just now? Waste that hand, I can let you go.
If you take a picture with one hand, you will lose that hand. Tian's cold sentence fell, and the reporters looked at each other, their cheeks became as pale as paper, and they lost their blood color.
We know we are wrong. Please forgive us.
Then, some reporters are afraid to look at Tian, cry for mercy, hoping that he can raise his hand.
If you make a mistake, you have to pay for it. If you do something wrong, you will lose everything. Don't you think it's too cheap?
Tian hears the sound, pick eyebrow a smile, light way, you decide, is you do it yourself, still let me do it?
Let me do it?
Tian's words fell down, and the reporters trembled and nearly fell to the ground. They have seen Tian's cruel methods when he attacked Lu Ming.
If Tian asked him to help them, there would be no way to survive? Have you thought about it? If you don't make a decision, I'll help you.
Tian looked at a group of reporters, continued to light way.
We know we're wrong, please.
Those reporters smell speech, instinctively want to beg again, can see Tian's cold eyes, to the mouth, immediately mutter and swallow into the stomach. At this moment, they already know that there is only one way to wait for them, that is, according to Tian's words, to discard the hand that they just took pictures of. The difference is that Tian does it, or they do it.
We do it ourselves.
A group of reporters made a decision immediately after their eyes changed a little. If they do it by themselves, they can give their hands away to live. If they keep it for 10.5 days, they can get better. If they let Tian do it, it's really useless.
Bang! Bang! Bang!
Immediately after that, a group of reporters clenched their teeth, closed their eyes, picked up a few pieces in the street, turned their heads, and smashed them down to their hands. With the dull sound of skin opening, their hands immediately bled, and their mouths even gave out a shrill roar that was comparable to killing pigs.
Good, you can go away.
After Tian swept an eye toward a numerous reporters, light way. As soon as the words fell, the journalists who were still howling were immediately pardoned. They did not dare to hesitate at all. They turned around in a hurry and fled. It's cheap for you rubbish. You shouldn't break one hand. You should break both hands and tear your mouth so that you can make it up in the future. If you do harm to others, you will be harmed at last. It's just natural that you should not be punished. A crowd of onlookers watched the reporters scramble for the road and run away. They were furious. I'm sorry, little girl. We misunderstood you just now. I apologize. This is my video. I deleted it. This is my photo, I also deleted it. I'm sorry, we've been used by this rubbish. We'll compensate you. Girl, you are good. You have to refuse this kind of rubbish. Otherwise, it will be a disaster. Immediately after that, a crowd of onlookers apologized to Ning Shui and pressed the delete button for all the photos and videos in front of him. Tian looks at people's appearance and looks at Ning Shui. Seeing that Ning Shui shakes her head slightly, she is too lazy to deal with these people again. Although these guys are equally hateful, they are only used by those reporters and Lu Ming. Although they are wrong, they are not as serious as Lu Ming and those reporters. Tomorrow at this time, along the distance, rushed to light Rolls-Royce, parked at the side of the road, a white-haired old man with the help of several young people, rushed over, constantly scanning around and calling out.
This old man is not the he of the LV family in Haojiang.
Who can he be? Grandfather, I'm here. Please help me. Seeing LV, Lu Ming immediately trembled as if a dying man had caught the straw after drowning.
Tomorrow. When LV heard the news, he saw LV Ming kneeling on the ground like a bloody man.
His body trembled and he almost didn't fall to the ground.
He is the only grandson in the 3 generations of Lu family.
He is afraid to melt in his mouth and knock in his hand. From small to large, he is reluctant to move a finger.
Now, he is beaten like this. Who is it? Who made my grandson like this?
I want him to pay for his life. Lu He was furious and looked around to find out the culprit.
Joke, if you don't ask for everything, you want someone to pay for your grandson's life. Why don't you ask him what he has done to become what he is today? In my opinion, you are the one who dotes on him today. Tian listens to LV's words, shakes his head, sneers and sniffs.
He said that how could Lu Ming be so unscrupulous and reckless in smearing others? Now it seems that the reason for this is very simple, because he was spoiled by LV without any bottom line. Protect the calf's son, also should have a discretion, but LV obviously don't have this discretion.
My grandson won't do anything wrong.
Lu shook his head coldly, and his attitude was very firm.
Your grandson can't do anything wrong?
To tell you the truth, your grandson just chatted up a girl on the street, and the girl ignored him, so he deliberately discredited others. He also called a reporter to take pictures of others, in order to discredit their reputation and reputation.
Such a person, do you mean that he is right?
You old man are really unreasonable. Your grandson has ruined the reputation of others.
Otherwise, people will have enough to deal with him.
This sentence falls, not to mention Tian.
Even those people around him can't hear it.
They sneer and tell the truth.
Impossible, absolutely impossible, tomorrow is not such a person.
LV shook his head, then looked at Tian and said coldly, you are slandering him.
Brother Lu, I can testify that it's not Mr. Yi who is slandering your grandson.
It's your family, LV Ming, who is really not open-minded and bumps into Mr. Yi. At this time, old gambling king came over, looking at LV deep voice way.
Old gambler my God, he's here too. Tut, I didn't expect that this incident could startle old gambler Did you hear that old gambler just called that young man Mr. Yi? At this age, he was so valued by old gambler
This word falls, those onlookers around are shocked and the old gambling king unexpectedly appears at the same time, but also for the old gambling king to Tian's address and feel extremely shocked.
Who is he? He is definitely the man on the top of the pyramid of Haojiang. Although LV is not vulgar, he is less well known than him at least.
Can be such a big identity, a young man, should be so respectful, how can this not shock people?
What does this matter to you?
Not to mention these people, LV was also surprised by the title of old gambling king he called Tian, but thinking of his grandson's injury, he looked at old gambling king and said in a deep voice.
It really has something to do with me.
Old gambler light smile, way, because you this treasure grandson, unexpectedly arranged Miss Ning to recognize me to be the deed lord.
This statement is ridiculous. Who is Miss Ning?
She is in charge of Shueji Cream and has more than $100 million.
Does such a person need to recognize others as Chie? LV you really spoil your grandson so much that he dares to talk nonsense.
After a word falls, LV immediately looks at LV Ming who was paralyzed on the ground. When he sees LV Ming's dodging eyes, he immediately understands that what old gambling king said is probably the truth of the matter. Although he had heard some rumors about Lu Ming at home before, he said that he had many bad deeds outside. But he never thought that he had reached such a point. However, although LV was dissatisfied with LV Ming, he thought that he was covered with blood, but his heart was still burning. Looking at Tian, he said in a deep voice, I don't care what's right or wrong. Maybe my grandson is wrong first, but it's wrong for you to beat someone, especially my grandson. I want you to apologize to him immediately, and then punish yourself heavily. I can let bygones be bygones for this matter.
You let bygones be bygones?
Why is your face so big?
Tian hears the sound and laughs, looking at LV as if he saw a big joke.
He has never seen such a brazen person.
His grandson has done something wrong and slandered other people's reputation for no reason.
After being punished, he never said a word. He has to be punished by the wronged person himself. How big a face does it have to be to say this kind of right and wrong words regardless of right and wrong?
What's your attitude? He gambling king, your descendants are too rampant, aren't they?
Hearing this, he turned his head and looked at old gambler he asked in a deep voice. In his mind, to Tian's age, he should be the descendant of the old gambling king, and also by the power of the old gambling king, he is so unscrupulous.
Younger generation?
The old gambling king is Zhang, immediately want to wave a hand, and the face is full of fear of saw leaf day one eye.
Although Yi Tian's age is indeed quite small, he is really afraid to say that Yi Tian is his younger generation. Such a perverse young man must be neglecting discipline on weekdays.
Today, I will teach you a good lesson for your adults. He doesn't wait for the old gambling king to open his mouth, then he glances at Yi Tian and says in a cold voice.
Crazy? Neglect of discipline?
Yi Tian was dumbfounded, but he found that he really underestimated his shamelessness. In this way, it's more appropriate to put it on Lu Ming. But now, this guy shamelessly uses these words on him. At this moment, he turned his head and looked at a middle-aged man behind him. He said in a deep voice, Liang, since he doesn't want to punish himself, please help him.
Young man, I think you are good at it.
I advise you not to suffer for yourself.
Honestly, punish yourself. Don't let me do it, or you will regret it.
Liang, hearing the speech, takes a step forward and sweeps towards Yi Tianxia. After sweeping, she says indifferently. Just a prefecture level later stage, dare to put such bold words in front of me?
I really want to know, who gives you such confidence? Yi Tian can't help laughing when he hears Li Ying's words. It's just a monk in the later stage of prefecture level. Now, he doesn't look at him anymore.
However, the other party still takes Xiao as the realm to scare him. This is really the funniest thing in the world. He would like to know how this guy looks when he sees his strength.
You are so stubborn. In this case, I'll be the only one to help you.
Liang hears Yi Tian's words, and her face is cold. She starts to exert her strength at her feet and waves her fist to Yi Tian with the sound of the wind. Seeing this, he sneers. He knows how powerful Liang is. Even if he naivete has two brushes, he is definitely not the opponent of such a powerful mountain man. Waiting for Yi Tian, he will surely come to a worse end than Ming.
You really don't know how to die. Yi Tian looks at Liang, but he doesn't dodge.
After shaking his head slightly, he stretches his hand forward and holds his fist in Li Ying's sneer. This happened almost at the moment when Yi Tian's palm touched Li Ying's fist. The expression on Li Ying's face suddenly became dull. He felt that his fist with the power of terror was like a heavy bombardment on a steel plate, but he couldn't make any progress.
Boom! 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 Then, more terrible things happened. Along Yi Tian's 5 fingers, the force suddenly swept away like a hurricane.
Along his 5 fingers, suddenly there was a series of crisp crackles, and the joints of his bones burst.
Ah!
10 fingers linked to the heart, the bone in the terrible force, inch by inch split from the heart pain, let Liang immediately raise his head and howl.
Why don't you believe it when you say you don't know what to do?
Yi Tian light a smile, grasp Liang fist of that hand lightly a shake, then like throw a piece of paper person, throw him out.
Boom!
Liang flies upside down and immediately falls heavily on the roof of the Rolls-Royce that he came to. Under the terrible pressure, Rolls-Royce's hard roof immediately roared, followed by a huge human-shaped depression.
Poof!
Not only that, along his mouth, there is a mouth of blood, the chest dyed a piece of red.
How could it be? How could this be?
Lu and the whole person at the moment are almost confused, staring at this scene, just feel like a dream is not true. He knows better than anyone how powerful Liang is.
When Liang makes a move, he thinks that Yi Tian will be cleaned up miserably.
His head will be broken and blood will flow. I'm afraid it's all pediatrics, but he never thought, Yi Tian just a face, then lie down Liang, instead will he hit the head, blood, mouth spit blood. How strong should a person be in order to be so strong? Not to mention even the people who were watching all around were completely stunned at this moment. When Liang just shot, they felt that Liang must be able to fight, but they didn't expect that Yi Tian could solve Liang so easily, threw him out and spat blood at his mouth.
He, you are wrong, Mr. Yi, not my junior.
On the contrary, I respect him very much, and at this time, he old gambling king also looks at He, light way. This time, he doesn't call He brother Lu, because he knows that what He has done has trampled on Yi Tian's bottom line. Waiting for He, there will be no good end. If he still calls himself brother Lu, it may lead to Yi Tian's dissatisfaction. Such a powerful person, of course, cannot be the younger generation of He gambling king, should be the strong one he worships. No matter how silly He is, at this moment, it's impossible that he doesn't understand this truth.
Now, do you want to let bygones be bygones? Yi Tian turns his head and looks at He.
His tone is peaceful, and his smile is bright. But such a smile, falling in He's eyes, made him feel that such a smile was more terrible than the devil. He has now fully understood that from the beginning to the present, he is like a clown in Yi Tian's eyes, and his words and actions are like a clown's farce. I'm sorry, my family is willing to take full responsibility for today's affairs as long as it can make you calm down. I'll let you know.
After all, he started from scratch. He used to be a hero. He was able to bend and stretch.
When he heard Yi Tian's words, his face immediately showed bitterness and bowed to Yi Tian, shaking and apologizing. He knows that at this moment, he must let Yi Tian calm down. Otherwise, a strong man who can destroy Liang face to face wants to obliterate the whole family unconsciously, just like eating and drinking water. For the sake of the family, no matter how unwilling or unwilling he is, he has to be humble to let Yi Tian get rid of the evil spirit in his heart. Of course, for the sake of the call he just ignored, the family must bear a more tragic price.
Let me down? Shouldn't I let you down? I'm really scared.
Mr. Lu, don't scare me, who is crazy and neglectful of discipline. Yi Tian disdains to sneer, looking at Lu's cold sarcasm. If he knows a little bit about right and wrong, he won't hold on to the family today.
But unfortunately, He's actions are more rubbish than Ming's.
There is no doubt that even if Lu Ming is taught a lesson today, he will relapse after his scar is healed.
I don't know how many people will be harmed again.
And those people, not Ning Shui, so good luck, he stood behind. Therefore, today he will not only severely punish Ming, but also He, so as to completely eliminate the evil of Ming in the world and the source of he's indulging in Ming's evil.
I'm sorry, Mr. Yi. No matter what the conditions are, you can say it.
No matter what our family can do, as long as you put forward it, we will try our best to meet it.
He is creepy.
He feels a kind of fierce anger from Yi Tian's words. Without any hesitation, his knees immediately fall to the ground. Looking at Yi Tian, he knocks his head heavily and trembles.
He knelt to Yi Tianxia. When the onlookers saw the scene, they almost lost their voice and couldn't believe it. Who is He? He is a tycoon of Haojiang.
Even if he is a little inferior to old gambler he is not a casual person. But now, it is such a respected person, even to kneel and kowtow to Yi Tian. This shows the power of Yi Tian and the fear of Yi Tian in He's heart.
What I want, you family can't take it out.
Yi Tian sneers at He, light way. Now he wants to break through the 7 levels of the cave, to revive Ning Yao's spirit, and to find the most suitable body for her.
How can a family help him to do these things?
He shuddered. The more Yi Tian was like this, the more frightened he was. A moment later, he burst into tears, looked at Yi Tian and choked, "Mr. Yi, please, just look at me as an old man. Please forgive us." Then he raised his arm and wiped his tears, looking miserable.
You don't have to play the game of selling miseries in front of me. There are many people who are worse than you in the world.
Moreover, I'm afraid there were many people who knelt down in front of your grandson and begged for his forgiveness.
You might as well ask your grandson how he treated those people. Although he looks miserable, it's a pity that Yi Tian doesn't eat his miserable way at all.
He sneers twice and says faintly. Hearing this, Lu Ming involuntarily shrinks his neck and looks at Yi Tian in fear. As Yi Tian said, in the past, many of the people he bullied knelt down in front of him and kowtowed to beg for mercy. Unfortunately, he didn't even look at them at that time. He even thought that the way they knelt down was ridiculous. At this moment, he knelt down in front of Tian. He realized that it was a humble feeling to kneel down and beg for mercy. It was not only Lu Ming, but also those onlookers who thought he was pathetic. After hearing Tian's words, they took back all the words of advice. As Tian said, they pity he now, but who pity those who were bullied by Ming in the past? Old gambler he, in view of the friendship between you and me for many years, please ask Mr. Yi for a favor. Seeing this, he turned his head and looked at old gambler he, hoping that he could lend a helping hand and help himself.
I can't help it. I'm sorry.
Old gambler he shook his head decisively. Louis's attitude also made him feel very disappointed. This old friend is intelligent, but he is confused with his grandchildren. Lu Ming has a lot of bad deeds. Instead of punishing him severely, he tries to protect him in every way. He even wants Tian to punish himself to make amends. In this way, let alone that he has planned not to help, even if he wants to help, how can he open his mouth?
How many industries does the Lu family have in Haozhong?
At this time, Tian looked at he with a condescending glance and asked. The family is in Haozhong, with 2 casinos and 2 hotels. Hearing this, he quickly said, the family is willing to take out a casino to make amends.
A casino to make amends.
One word fell, and the people around were all speechless. You know, the casinos here in Haozhong are no different from the cornucopia of daily income. 1 year's income of a gambling house is more than 100 million.
Such compensation is really hard to move. 1. Tian hears the sound, looking at he with a sneer, light way.
The reason why Lu Ming is so arrogant is only based on the rich assets of the Lu family. There is nothing he can look up to in such a large Lu family. In this case, he can only choose the most vulgar thing. Taking away the assets of the family will make Ming lose his arrogant capital in the future. It will also make he feel the terrible pain of cutting off most of his body. It will let him know what kind of pain it will bring to him to indulge Ming without a bottom line.
A casino, a hotel.
At this moment, he fully understood Tian's intention. After a long silence, he slowly raised his 2 fingers and trembled. The moment the words fell, along the corner of his eyes, there are 2 lines of turbid tears. But this time, he is no longer acting, but really shed tears of pain. These 2 casinos and 2 hotels are his life's hard work and the wealth he left to the family, which he is most proud of. But now, Tian has no trouble, forcing him to take out a casino and a hotel to make amends.
He even dare not say a word of resentment. This kind of pain is like a blunt knife cutting meat.
It's so painful, but it's never over. At this moment, he hated Lu Ming.
It's not this bastard. How can he encounter such a thing? How can his whole life's hard work become a bubble?
But he also understood at the moment that Lu Ming could have today without his previous arrogance. If he had corrected Lu Ming's mistakes earlier, how could such a terrible thing happen today?
That's a little sincerity. Tian smiles and looks at He says, 2 casinos and 1 hotel. Today's business is over. I don't want to go into it anymore. 2 casinos, 1 hotel.
He heard that he was about to vomit blood.
What's the difference between the family and Rootless Wood after losing the 2 casinos?
I'm afraid the news will soon spread, and the family will be in chaos.
Even if he can keep the hotel, it will become an unknown. What? Don't you want to? Tian smiles and asks. I will.
Hearing this, he shivered and nodded in a hurry. He knew that what Tian asked him for was not money to make amends, but money to buy his life, 2 casinos and a hotel to buy the lives of his grandparents and grandchildren. Although it was cruel, he had no right to refuse. Old gambler, you help me deal with it, and it will be up to you to help me run it in the future. The Leaf Day hears a sound, looking at old gambling king, light way.
Don't worry, Mr. Yi.
I will try my best to let Howren manage the 2 casinos and hotels in person. He old gambling king nodded in a hurry, then specially pushed He Haoran out. Let him help Yi Tian.
He knows that he is old and has little time in the world.
In the future, He Haoran will take charge of the Yi family and let him do more for Yi Tian, which will do no harm to the Yi family.
If parents love their children, they have far-reaching plans.
Yi Tian is so clever that he understands what he means when he hears this. He smiles and nods. At the same time, he looks at LV He who helps LV Ming. This truth, he old gambler understand, but LV He, obviously do not understand.
Did you forget what you said? Closely following, Yi Tian looks at LV He and supports LV Ming, ready to leave the back, light way.
Mr. Yi, thank you for your kindness in sparing our family.
Hearing the sound, LV He turns around and looks at Yi Tian. His smile is more ugly than crying.
He is very unwilling, but the heart is also very clear. Yi Tian at the moment to do so, it is indeed a high hand.
Otherwise, by Yi Tian's means, even if he takes everything from the LV family, what can he do? What do you dare to do? 2 casinos, 1 hotel.
The onlookers have been completely boiling. This one stroke almost hollowed out the entire LV family, and the total value, absolutely more than 10 billion. It can be said that the price Lu Ming paid for slandering is absolutely the most expensive in the world. What's more amazing is that the LV family has paid such a price, and they even want to thank Yi Tian. If you don't see this scene with your own eyes, who can't think it's more bizarre than the one in the movie?